Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto disrupts Kami's plan. She sends him back in time to fix it. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Naruto. What are you doing? Unhand me Ashura. What do you think this little stunt of yours is gonna do? Naruto found himself in a rather unique position, and not just physically. Well, I guess having a literal goddess in a full-blown headlock while explosive tags equal to a nuke were about to go off was pretty unique. It was the implications that were going through his slowed mind. Looks like the thing about life flashing before your eyes before death was true. And I never even got to thank Hinata properly. Pulling my mind out of the fire right after Niji's death. Such a strong woman. He was planning on killing himself. That's right, nothing graceful, nothing cool. He was going down and had planned to take the son of a bitch with him. The sage could help Sasuke and Kakashi figure out how to undo Kaguya's jutsu. He knew it wouldn't be enough to just seal her away again. No, there was always the risk that someone down the road would just unseal her again. And then even more people would die. No, he was going to take her to see the Shinigami personally. Damn, I'll even open the gates to hell for her myself. Because no way is she going to get away with what she has done. Niji, Jiraiya, his own father and mother, Haku, Zabuza, Asuma-sensei, Granny Chiho, Gaara, even if Granny Chiho did bring him back to life, all the other Jinchuriki, and the countless lives lost during this war. All of them was her fault. Even if the Dark Zetsu was working on his own, she made him, which made her equally to blame. So what had his smart plan been? Put explosive seals on steroids all over his body, only to activate should his body fail him due to a battle injury, and he figured impaling himself on one of Kaguya's hands and using it to get her in an ironclad grapple hold was good enough. Of course, he saw himself on the swing at the academy, talking to Iruka in the forest, training Konohamaru, learning his Nindo from Haku, meeting Isaribi and Amaru, growing close to his classmates, training and chasing after Sasuke, training with Jiraiya, fighting the Akatsuki, fighting this Kami-forsaken war, finding his feelings for Hinata at the very end of it all, and then he saw his failures. Losing to Sasuke, not saving him, nor being able to protect Jiraiya, not being able to save Niji, not realizing all of the obvious signs Hinata had been giving him, not returning Hinata's feelings. Not becoming Hokage, not leaving a mark on the world, failing his parents, failing Sarutobi. Then he was taken inward, to his mind where time flowed differently. Kurama was in front of him. Her volcanic eyes staring back at his. His last failure, to protect the one person who had kept him alive his entire life. Sorry Kurama, if I could I wouldn't drag you into this. Fret not, young one, I've been around a long time, seen and done many things. Hated everything and only loved one man. My father. I hated life and you showed me the way forward, a way to get out of my hate, just as you showed Konan and Niji and Obito in the very end. You gave me a chance when all you heard your entire life that I was a demon, a monster, a soulless machine. There is no one else I would rather face death with than you. Now stop moping, this isn't over until the fat lady sings and this white bitch is still breathing. Suddenly he was back in the real world, if this dimension he was in was even real. He and Kaguya were falling, Kaguya struggling like a man possessed. But Naruto was filled with determination. He wasn't letting her escape. The fact he could hear Black Zetsu wailing in her sleeve gave him a grim satisfaction. But at least he won't be around to sow even further chaos in the future. It's been one hell of a ride, kid. Too bad you never got laid. Or maybe it's a good thing you never got laid. Kami knows how awkward that would have been for me. Hey, can I get less ass from the peanut gallery? I'm barely able to hold Kaguya as it is. You'll get a lot more from me than just sass, you little brat, if this idiotic plan of yours fails. Idiotic? I thought you were proud to face death with me. Don't get me wrong, I am proud to face death with you, a human I was sealed into. But does that mean I want to face death itself? No. And this stunt will mean nothing if it fails. Speaking of which, how long is the timer on that thing? It's been activated for 3 minutes. Long enough for me to stop it should it activate prematurely, short enough so no one else can. Besides, I can auto-activate the explosive part whenever I want to, but I'm waiting for something. And that would be. And that something came in the form of Sasuke and Kakashi, fusing their Susanoo bodies to make a sturdy shield, one hopefully enough to withstand the blast that they would never have been able to outrun. It took the form of an old-fashioned samurai wearing a demon mask and Kabuto helmet, as well as the formal battle armor that Edo period samurai would have worn. Its coloring was a lot more interesting, having taken its base color from Kakashi's blue Susanoo and purple swirls all over it from Sasuke's. How Naruto wished he could have warned his team about his plan, but then they may have stopped him. And he didn't think he'd be able to acquire the courage to go through with this inane plan a second time. And he would have felt really bad if he took them out in an explosion meant for two. But in his mind it had to be done. Simply sealing Kaguya away was not an option. After all, he and Sasuke had been the latest that Ashura and Endra's reincarnations had clung to, but who's to say they, or their chakra, would still be around 200 years from now. Or however long it would take some idiot to unseal Kajaya and undo all the work that the elemental nation had done to bring peace. Who's to say the elemental nations would be prepared 200 years from now? Or that, if by some chance Ashura and Endra had stayed around to find new host outside their normal bloodline, who's to say that the new hopes they clung to would be up for the task? That and a million other likewise thoughts was what turned Naruto down the path of self-sacrifice. And if I'm gonna die, might as well make it nuclear. Had been his thoughts at the time. Even now that his explosives were about to go off, he was wishing he had found more ways to make his explosive seals stronger, even after having gone through every source that he could think of to make them as strong as possible. They had originally been meant for Madara, but here's to hoping. He clenched his eyes tight and felt his stomach rip open and an agonizing pain and burning sensation from his abdomen before things went dark. The last sounds he heard were the sobbing of Sakura and the wailings of Kajaya. Sasuke stared in disbelief as he, Kakashi and Sakura were all but dumped into the real world, the Susanoo of him and Kakashi dispelling itself. What had the dope done? He sacrificed himself, killed Kajaya. Something even the sage hadn't thought possible. But it had happened. He watched Kajaya's body be enveloped in the explosion, seen her body torn to shreds along with Naruto's. Watched their chakras disperse as it left their bodies, all in slow motion, as they were forcibly removed from wherever the hell they had been taken. And now he was gone. No more loud boisterous idiot with a goofy smile, determined eyes. No more rival. Nowhere to be seen, but the effects were immediate. The tree, the great beginning of all chakra, was withering as its main source of power was vanquished. Those who had been wrapped up were being unwrapped by themselves, the occupants coming to their senses. To his right he saw the ghost of Hagoromo looking rather shocked, the 4 reanimated Hokage around him. Oh god, now I have to tell the Dobe's father that he's dead. That thought for some reason unnerved Sasuke. But his thoughts were cut off from the cries of Sakura. And what of myself? My plan after this had been to kill the Dobe myself, then the village, become the ultimate villain, channel everyone's hate towards me so that they couldn't direct it to others. He grimaced at that thought, the faces of Itachi and Naruto coming to the forefront of his mind. But I guess I can't, that would be a direct insult to them. Itachi loved the hidden leaf, so did Naruto, they both died for it. Could I really bring myself to spit on their image like that? It was then that he realized that Hagoromo was talking to him, looking rather confused. Well? Hey boy, are you listening to me? What? I said what happened? I can't sense Mother's chakra, nor Naruto's for that matter. It's rather alarming. Did you two manage to complete the sealing jutsu? Then Minato just had to speak up. Yes, what did happen to my son? How was he supposed to tell this man that his own son had blown himself up? The only time this had happened to Sasuke was when Deidara had tried that suicide jutsu, and even then Sasuke hadn't had an emotional attachment to the maniac. Small beads of sweat started forming across his brow. He was baffled. Sasuke had stared down freaking Madara Uchiha himself and not flinched, but now he found trouble forming basic words. Fortunately he was saved by Kakashi. Minato-sensei, Hagoromo-sama, Naruto blew himself up along with Kajaya. 1 minute we were going along with a plan, and things were going well, relatively speaking. Kajaya dodged left as Indara's fistful of black lightning shot past her. She ducked as one of Ashura's many clones flew over her head and stepped back as the pink-haired child tried punching her in a frontal assault. It wouldn't work, of course, though she had a good grasp of Taijutsu. She was nowhere near fast enough to actually hit her. More than likely a distraction. She smirked and disappeared as Kakashi suddenly appeared above her, Indara rushing her right side and Ashura her left, their palms outstretched in Hagoromo's horrendous sealing technique. She laughed when they collided with her. Her last child, Zetsu, also laughing. Mother, he called out, why don't you stop playing with them? We have more work to do. She always forgot how persistent her children could be. I have been asleep for Kami knows how long, she replied calmly. This is to test how far I have rusted. These are the best this world has to offer in terms of fighting strength, and I mean to see how far the world has developed without my guidance. Now shush child, the foolish children seemed to be trying again. Much like the last time, she avoided their petty attempts at harm, dodging left and right, flying up and down, batting flies aside without a second thought. This was easy, Kajaya grinned, almost too easy, and these fools are their world's best hope. Probably their biggest failures. Then she saw Ashura's clones rushing her, should deal with this group and end this petty charade. Backwards kick, poof, 4 left, 2 jabs, poof, poof, 2 left, bone senbon, poof, 1 more, a straight jab. Kajaya's face turned from cold to triumph as her straight jab impaled the real Ashura through his right shoulder, his scream of pain turning to one of desperation and triumph, as the moment she did this blue and green seals all over the boy lit up, and he grabbed her by the wrist and got her in a flying triangle hold, squeezing the hell out of her throat with his thighs as hard as he could, screaming to his now horrified teammates, Kakashi, Sasuke, protect yourselves, I am about to blow. The context of his meaning quickly being understood by Kajaya. What Ashura plans to blow me up. Then he had more clones propel himself and Kajaya away from us. Sasuke and I had barely managed to combine our Susanoo technique when the seals went and well, next thing we know we were here. Honestly Hagoromo-sama, I thought you brought us home. Hagoromo's now remorseful face turned away, a spectral tear falling down his cheek. Damn it Naruto, you were supposed to seal her and live. He sighed deeply, his shoulders sagging. I see, what Naruto's done today will have more than likely saved many lives and many more in the future. However, I gave you two my sealing technique to prevent this outcome. I guess it was inevitable. Minato. He turned towards the now distraught looking undead Hokage. You should go see to your boy, I am truly sorry this had to happen. He waved his hand and Minato wordlessly crumbled to dust. The rest of you, we have a lot of work to do too, undoing my mother's work. If memory recalls, there is a technique one can use to unbind those held in the tree's roots. It has been some time when I've thought about that jutsu. Which ones haven't opened yet anyways? Let's see you there Tsurutobi-san. Naruto's eyes opened to a vast whiteness around him. The only color he could see was the stark orange that was Kurama and her fur behind him, and the lavender color of Kajaya's slumped form to his right. He grinned. So I guess my asinine plan worked out after all Kurama. Kurama chuckled, I guess so kid, so tell me Kajaya, what's going through that mind of yours? In a voice much softer than Naruto was expecting, her response was, I lost to a human and a demon. I must say the experience is quite educating. She grimaced as she said the last word. I thought myself all-powerful, God. But to be felled by a boy minutes before adulthood and a construct of my own chakra, maybe Hagoromo was right after all. Are those tears I see Kajaya? They were my children, and in my own vanity for power, I threw their love for me away. Tossed it aside and made them hate me. But it had to be done. I thought the only way to secure peace for all was by fear. By now Naruto realized Kajaya's words were directed more towards herself than to him or Kurama. But a boy managed to secure peace to a lot more people than I ever did. How though? Mutual hatred towards one thing. A necessity for safety. Naruto cut her off by saying it can look like that, but I don't think so. I just made everyone realize that at the end of the day, we're all human. We bleed the same, die the same. And for the most part want to just live our lives to the fullest and enjoy the company we find ourselves in. The fact that Zetsu reincarnated Madara just gave everyone a focus to prove that we can only survive as long as we work together. The clapping broke the conversation up as all heads turned towards two new figures that appeared, one male and one noticeably female. Naruto actually blushed slightly, he was looking at an angle with the body of Tsunade. Maybe even bigger. Dressed in glowing white robes, silver wings came out of her back. Light blonde hair visible at the outskirts of a hood that covered a soft-looking face. Due to the angle Naruto couldn't get a good look. The gentleman to her left was not so easy to read. Black robes covered the entirety of his body and face, gray skeletal wings protruded from his back. He was also emitting a purple aura that filled the air with a mixture of dread, chills and fear. It was easily off-put by the warm, serene, golden glow given off by his female comrade. Then he spoke up in a sort of gruff voice, well, other than staring at my sister, you could not have said that any better Naruto. Naruto opened his mouth to say something, probably a smartest remark, but a quick swat from one of Kurama's claws stopped him. Don't even think about it kid, these are two beings you do not want to mess with. The female chuckled in a soft manner. Oh Kurama, it is quite alright, the boy is a hero. He stopped the legendary Kajaya after all. I think he's earned the right to make a quip at my brother and me. The brother spoke up, you're right, he does. However, he did not have the right to go and kill Kajaya and by extension himself. 3 heads turned towards him in confusion. Oh brother, we talked about this, we couldn't control his actions, nor could we predict them. He doesn't deserve to be punished. No sister dear, you talked, I listened and did not agree to a damn thing. I'm sorry, but what the hell is going on? What do you mean I had no right to kill her? At the time, if memory serves, she was trying to kill me. Which is why you were supposed to follow through with Kakashi's plan and seal her away again. You would have lived and helped the elemental nations through its next crisis and the crisis after that and the one after that. The brother was a little more agitated now, the dread in the air grew noticeable thicker. Wait, what? Sorry, I'm having a little trouble understanding all of this. What do you mean the next crisis? The sister spoke up now. My brother and I have set certain events in motion so that things happen. One of them was sealing away Kajaya. This in turn would lead others to invent a new version of the Edo Tensei. The brother cut her off, grumbling, that damn jutsu has caused so many problems for hell. Like I was saying, it would lead others to invent a new Edo Tensei to bring Madara back, who would again try to implant the infinite Tsukiyomi, that would in turn make Kakashi use the 8 trigram sealing technique, sealing Madara and himself, and then die, giving way for you to finally step up as Hokage. You would give birth to beautiful children with Hinata, and you would, as Sarutobi said, pass the will of fire on to the next generation, so they could be the downfall of Kajaya's siblings, who would take you and try and reincarnate her. But this little stunt of yours has upset that balance. Naruto gave a cheeky grin. Well then you should never have made me fight Kajaya. After all I am known as the #1 unpredictable knucklehead of the leaf. I don't follow plans that well, and honestly like I told Niji, fates and destiny be damned to the very end you make your own story, no one else should write it for you. There was a threat to everything and everyone I held dear. And I have no way of knowing what's gonna happen in the future, but I'll be damned if I shove a problem on the new generation if I can take care of it now. The sister laughed gently. And you held your beliefs to the very end Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. That is commendable to say the least, not many humans have the strength of will to hold on so tightly as you have. Shinigami snorted, yeah because that didn't screw us over in the end. Kurama decided then was the best time to speak up Shinigami-sama, Kami-sama if I may, if you were manipulating events like you say, how did one simple human mess with your plan? It was the Shinigami who answered, unlike what most mortals believe, neither I nor my sister are omnipotent. Neither of us are all-powerful, she has the power to create, I have the power to destroy. We are not perfect, look at your great ninja wars for instance, those were not supposed to happen. Too many souls flooding heaven and hell at once. Too much trouble. Anyone of sufficient willpower and determination can go against us. For the most part we don't meddle in the lives of humans. Just a touch here or there so that certain things happen. Needless to say that caused several moments of silence amongst Kajaya, Kurama and Naruto as they each mulled over the new information. Kajaya snapped out of it first wait, so you're telling me that my becoming the mother of all chakra, resurrection, and defeat were meant to happen? Kami looked towards Kajaya, the hood of her robe, hiding most of the features of her face. You were never supposed to eat from the tree of divinity in the first place. Up until that point my job, and my brother's job was just to be a judge. But then you ate from the tree and got the energy that made us powerful, and you used it to enslave those around you. We are forbidden from going to the material plane, the mortal realm, else it would have been me personally who would have smote you Otsutsuki. But then you had to have children, brother and I knew what such power would do to the weak and easily corruptible minds of humans. We had to do something, and we decided to use Hagoromo to seal you away permanently. But then you created Black Zetsu, with its sole objective of reincarnating you, we made a master plan, to have you resurrected for only then would Black Zetsu, the only one you ever created, let his guard down. And then he would be sealed away with you, and you would have no hope of coming back and laying waste to the mortal realm. That had been the plan. No other being alive had the destructive potential you do, save maybe Sasuke Uchiha in his later years and his lack of empathy. But Naruto was the contingency if he ever went down a dark path again. After you were sealed away me and my brother could rest easy for a millennium or two. Then Shinigami turned towards Naruto, who was barely able to see some sort of skeletal figure hidden beneath his dark robes. That's why I am more than agitated kid, because we had no plan, backup plan, or contingency plan for if Kajaya died. And you may be asking yourself why it matters. Because Kajaya had a family, they were to reincarnate, or at least try and reincarnate her. But your kid was gonna stop them, with some help of course, and that would solidify his resolve to become the most powerful ninja ever, and he would save the ninja world from an evil, seeking to destroy what he considered the old ways. But none of that is to happen now, because you're not around to become the Hokage you were meant to be. Naruto gave a thumbs up, I made my own destiny to the very end. If that means I'm bound for hell, then at least give me the honor of opening the gates myself. His answer. Shinigami started laughing. And it wasn't a small little chuckle. No, he was holding his ribs. Howling out a big boisterous you, go to hell. Hahaha. As much as I hate you for the literal pile of shit you made my plan, you lived a life too good to go to hell. But I'll be damned if I let you go to heaven for the mess you've made. No, I have a much better idea. You're going to live you fool, live and fix your mistakes. The only thing Naruto could say was wah before he was enveloped by a bright light, and then when the light went away so too was Naruto, gone. Not a trace that he'd been standing there. Kajaya also noticed that when he went, Kurama disappeared as well. Leaving only her alone with Kami and Shinigami. She opened her mouth to say something, but Kami waved her hand and Kajaya froze in place, a statue for the time being. What honestly frozen in time? After all the plan to send Naruto back to fix his mistake was more complex than Shinigami realized. Alright brother dear, I'm off to visit the selected few who are to help Naruto on their journey. Try not to cause too much trouble. First and foremost she turned around and waved her hand, the white room as she dubbed it vanished, and instead she found herself weaving through a maze of doors in a rather big house. She heard laughing coming from one room, smiling to herself she quietly opened the door and in front of her was what looked to be a small study, a orange fire flickering in the corner as Niji Hyuga was talking to an older couple. It was fun mom, hearing about you and dad. 1. How the two of you met. The older lady, small compared to the man sitting next to her but with strong brown eyes, laughed. Oh son, your father was the epitome of pride and masculinity before he met me. It took a while, but I think I managed to make a decent man out of him. Her older companion had an aghast look on his face. I will have you know I was man enough before you found me, dear. Now Son, please do tell me about Naruto. The last time I saw him whilst I was alive, he was still in the academy screaming dreams of becoming the Hokage of all things. Has he really grown so much that you would? Then his eyes flicked over to Kami's quiet form, who was listening in. He stood up abruptly and bowed. Ah, Kami-sama. My apologies for not noticing your entrance. How can we help you? It is not you nor your wife I wish to speak with, Hisashi-san. It is Niji I want to talk to, if you don't mind me taking some of your time, of course. Shinigami was quietly sitting on his throne. Sending the boy back in time is dangerous. Wouldn't want to upset the others. Too, but this is the only way for sister and I not to have to deal with a mountain of paperwork and an endless amount of souls at once. Though should it really be so easy for him? I mean, with his knowledge of future events and plans of his enemies stopping Kajaya from being resurrected should be a piece of cake for him. But he did piss me off with that stunt of his. Maybe throw some unexpected challenges his way. Shush, my lord, you rang for me. A small little man batted appeared in front of Shinigami, his favored guardians of hell. It was damn near impossible to get the jump on them. Everyone made sounds, however small after all. And this one was the captain appointed by Shinigami himself for eons of loyal servitude and a rational thinking head. Yes, I have a matter with which I need assistance and advice. But I cannot go to my sister for help with this matter. It is something I would rather she not find out about yet. So I go to you to ask your opinion on the matter, as I have in the past. The man bat nodded his head and bowed, one knee on the ground, his head held low. My lord, it would be my pleasure. Tell me what bothers you and I will do everything in my ability to help. It was well known amongst Shinigami's demons and Kami's heavenly tenants that Kami and Shinigami planned out everything. What those plans pertain was a different subject altogether. A human has recently messed up a big plan that Kami and I painstakingly laid out. But this human, you see, he is really important to the plan. So Kami and I did something so he could fix his mistake. However, fixing the mistake for this human is going to be very easy. And I was thinking maybe I should throw some lower level demons at him. Make things interesting. Because I don't want things to be too easy. But he really hasn't done anything to face demons along his journey. Well, Shinigami-sama, you propose a very unique situation. Would these demons hinder the mistake he needs to fix, or make things worse for that matter? As well, would this human even be able to take on lower level demons? This is a human we are talking about after all. Legitimate questions. The only one of those I can answer is that at his strongest, he could take on maybe captain level demons. Lower level demons would not be a problem. I believe that if it will not impose this human on the mission you have set, then by all means do it. The end result will not change. My main concern is that if I send some demons and say don't kill him, just fight him, it won't be challenging. I want to use these small fights to test the human's growth. See how strong this human actually is. But if it's not a real life or death fight, then I fear the results won't be accurate. Though under those circumstances, my lord, it I risk that you would have to take. Well, there is one way to be sure though. You have my attention. Kurama watched as her scene shifted, Shinigami's insane cackling fading to the background. She was in front of Kami herself, sitting amongst a flower bed. It was upon seeing Kami that Kurama sealed she had been downsized. Kami-sama. Kurama buried her head. Kami in turn gave a curt nod. Several seconds of silence followed until Kami got up. Not many people know this, Kurama, but heaven isn't one place but a great many places. Everyone get their own heaven with whatever they want out of life. For an eternity, all to themselves. I have seen many heavens, from futuristic down to hell-ridden sadistic. And yet I find my favorite belongs to Kishimura Zoo. An autistic man killed 30 years ago. He came from Kumo. This is it. She spread her arms around and turned a full 360 circle, laughing. Kurama looked around slightly confused. This patch of land was no more than 30 yards wide, a full circle, and past the 30 yards just disintegrated into white nothingness. The man in question was chasing some butterflies off on the other end, completely oblivious. Yes, I imagine you are quite confused. Let me explain, please. Heaven grants everyone their own desires, what their hearts truly crave. Most Akimichi, for example, their heavens are connected, one giant buffet with a limitless amount of food. Niji Hyuga's heaven was his old home he lived in with his mother and father. This man could literally ask for anything in the world. But he just wants to chase wildlife and he's happy for an eternity. But the fragrance of flowers to fill his nose. I love it here, it's quiet, it's peaceful, and Kishimura is an exceptional conversationalist when he stop every now and then. Without being rude, Kami-sama, why did you bring me here? Right, well, because Shinigami and I have sent Naruto to the past when he was 8. His last year in the ninja academy. You have been around for many, many generations. And though the Shikifujin tied your soul to Naruto, the two of you are dead, and so that bond is no longer there. I wish to ask, would you like to go back in time with him as well? Or would you rather remain here in your own heaven free from life torments? Without hesitating Kurama said yes I do. Really? I expected as much, but may I ask why? It is true for a long time the only bond Naruto and I had were one forged in a need to keep the other alive. But at the end, with the war Naruto showed me that humans know best. They really were your best creations Kami-sama. Naruto showed me a way out from my pain and anger. He showed me what friendship was. We were partners and he would gladly give me his life to save mine, and I am proud to say I would do the same. He's my kid and I'll be damned if I let anything happen to him if there's something I can do. You'll have to relive every horror though. I think I have a good ideas as to Naruto-kun's character. With his knowledge of the future he will try and save everybody. He won't be able to solve everyone though. You will have to watch nightmare and tragedy, be subject to certain betrayal. At the point in time Naruto-kun was sent to most all of the villagers and their children will hate him. It will mean heartbreak and tough times. He is my kid. I will suffer every injury imaginable to travel this path you have chosen for him. I would face every challenge of heaven, hell and earth to make sure he slept every night, knowing his mission would save as many lives as he could. There is no amount of warnings you could give me that will sway or even make me think about changing my answer. I will choose another life of misery over an eternity of peace. Well said Kurama. Well said. Go now protect that which you have made your own. Guide him through his younger years, his young body will not have the same level of coordination as his much matured mind will have. Be there for him and watch him grow into what he was meant to be. A guardian of his people. A shepherd for his flock. The same white light enveloped Kurama as Kami for the first time gave a loud sincere laugh. And then it went away, Kurama leaving with it as well. A glint of light coming to Kami's eyes. She looked towards Kishimura before walking towards his preferred spot as the scenery changed to one more forest, the sound of wildlife bringing life to the area. For the first time in a long time, Kishimura-san, I do not know what will happen. Kishimura, a burly 5'7" man with brown hair and red eye, looked back to Kami and smiled, is that necessarily a bad thing Kami-kasen? I suppose not Kishi-kun. But I'm so used to being able to counteract any variable. Now I can't, I find it unnerving. But you'll be fine Kami-kasen. You always are. Kami gave a contented sigh. I know son. I know. Is something else bothering you Kami-kasen? You know that Shinigami and myself are not the only celestial beings out here. Just the ones for this world. We all have a thing for messing with the time. I just find myself wondering how they are going to react to my actions. Oh that's easy. Just let them see what you see in Naruto-kun. I'm sure they'll understand. I can only hope it will be that easy. The Lord of World 8 especially is very finicky about time travel. Then Kami felt it, the tug at the back of her power. The one that meant she had some otherworldly visitors. Wow. They got here a lot faster than I was anticipating. Better go get my brother and I am already here sister. How did things go with Kurama? As well as can be expected brother. Now shall we go entertain our guest and hope for there won't be trouble. 3. Naruto opened his eyes as his alarm clock started blaring its symphony. Behind closed eyes he sighed and turned off the alarm. Yesterday had been hell. 3 separate mobs was the meal of the day and avoiding 50+ people had been exhausting, especially since most of them knew where he lived. It had been 4 AM before they finally gave up and went home. He held little regard for the academy which started tomorrow, September 5th, but they did help his survival skills sharpen enough to where he could get away from most mobs, unless a ninja was amongst them. That didn't happen too often though, most ninjas steered clear of the mobs, since one got banished after helping one attack the young blonde. Today's mission. Try and get some school supplies. If he left early enough, the store owners would be too tired to realize who he was. A quick hinge to get rid of his whiskers and he should be good. He went into the poorly kept bathroom and took a cold shower, having used what warm water he was allotted at the beginning of summer. 20 minutes later, he walked out and started brushing his teeth with his worn-out toothbrush. 2 minutes later Naruto leaned over and spat out the mix of water, saliva and paster into the sink. Looking up at his reflection Naruto screamed what the fuck. Turning around Naruto was looking at himself. Only older, like much older. He was 11 at the moment, but what was staring back at him looked almost 17. But it was strange, he could see through this thing staring back. Okay who the hell are you? In a voice that sounded deeper than his own it responded I'm you, but I don't know what I'm doing here. What the hell is that supposed to mean? And why do you sound and look like me? Weren't you listening to me you idiot? I'm you. Only the you from the future. I think. Oi Kami, Shinigami what's going on? Naruto had no idea what was going on. First this thing came into his house, pretended to be himself from the future. Yeah right. What are you doing in my house? I think I can explain. Naruto nearly fainted when some talking skeleton appeared out of nowhere. Ahhh who the hell are you supposed to be? Shinigami-sama, what is going on? Give me one moment, I wanted to do this while younger you was asleep, but it makes no difference. Naruto this is gonna feel weird but go along with me. Shinigami snapped his skeletal hand, and the ghost Naruto started to shrink until he was a glowing sphere no bigger than an apple. Shinigami took the glowing orb and reached out towards the younger Naruto. Alright, this is gonna sound weird, but I need you to eat this. Naruto just stared at the Shinigami like he was stupid. Are you serious? You seriously expect me to eat that? No way. Look kid, I don't have all day, you want answers, then eat this, it will give you all of the answers you want. Naruto still stubbornly refused to eat, so Shinigami sighed and snapped his fingers. An image of a sleeping Hinata in her room appeared in the air, a figure he couldn't make out holding a knife near her throat. I was hoping I wouldn't have to do this, you know. It'll just make things difficult. Now I will say it again. Eat it. Hinata. She can't hear you, boy. Now one more time, eat. Naruto glared at Shinigami before taking the surprisingly warm orb. Giving one more glare to the Shinigami before closing his eyes and offering up a prayer to Kami. Dear Kami, please let this end okay. In one giant gulp, he swallowed the orb. Then his entire body went rigid, his eyes dulling a shade or two. Then his entire body glowed a bright light, his eyes nothing but pure white and a beam of light shooting from his mouth. His body started levitating off the ground for a few seconds before all the light disappeared and slumped to the ground. Looking to the clock that said 9 AM, Shinigami sighed again. This is definitely gone take a bit. He flicked his wrist and the image disappeared, another flick and Naruto was floating right to his bed again. Shinigami's head lifted up as he felt several figures coming in at high speeds. Looks like the boys' so-called guardians are coming to check in on the screaming and bright lights. What to do? He walked over to a dark corner and silently sank into its shadow as 3 Anbu came in, one wearing a purple marked cat mask, the other 2 an owl and dog mask. One. The cat masked Anbu looked over her shoulder, you two check out the apartment, look for any signs of intruders or sabotage. I'll check on the boy. The other 2 nodded and walked away, and as the female Anbu approached Shinigami vanished and reappeared behind her, touching her shoulder with his index finger. He didn't like messing with people's mind, but this had to be done. He still had thing to say to Naruto when he woke up after all. In a quiet voice he said Naruto is fine. In a monotonous voice she repeated Naruto is fine. This room is clear, he was just messing with flash bombs. He's obviously been at this a while and passed out from exhaustion. This room is clear, he was just messing with flash bombs. He's obviously been at this a while and passed out from exhaustion. She turned around and exited the room, repeating what Shinigami told her to say to her teammates who then left the house, and Shinigami sat down on a nearby chair. He hadn't been seated more than 30 seconds when Naruto shot up with a gasp and started coughing. Easy there kid, you just had your soul merge with another one, albeit your own younger soul, it gonna be a bit disorientating at first. A little. Cough 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 Jesus I can't tell up from down at the moment. Well it's what I thought would happen. What you thought? Look kid I've never done this before okay? It's no simple task to just bring you back in time. Because there's a you here we have to deal with. I don't think you'd want to kill yourself, and merging your soul with his was easier than making you a new body. Now listen I am only going to say this once we brought you back to the final year of the Ninja Academy. You're 12 years old, 5 years from now Madara will get revived and using the tablet Zetsu Forge get himself a Rinnegan eye, and Black Zetsu will use him to revive Kajaya Otsutsuki. Your one and only mission is to prevent that from happening or in case it does happen reseal her. Whatever else you do is up to you so long as it doesn't jeopardize the mission. And remember this is a one-time deal. Time is a fickle mistress, and sending you back in time is already breaking a couple of rules. Got it? Naruto nodded, looking around at the house he hadn't seen since coming home from his training trip with Jiraiya. Looking at all the posters he had of the previous cage, watching the wind brush past trees that had long been burned down by attacks to his house. He sat down on the old mattress that Jiraiya had personally burned down before buying him a proper bed. His old jumpsuit that had all different marks and stains that no amount of washing or sewing and stitching would make leave. He laughed softly, he was here, back to when he was 11, back to when he was still a stupid boy with high hopes and dreams. Back to when he was so weak. He couldn't feel the mental connection he once shared with Kurama, which was just discomforting. And high muscles, how did he ever survive? He'd need to weaken the seal so she could set it up again, but he was never any good at Fuinjutsu, never had the patience to understand the intricacies, and the calligraphy to make a seal worthwhile was just painful. Then a thought struck him. Hey Shinigami, I have a question before you leave. I honestly thought you'd have quite a few. If you brought me back here with the sole purpose of stopping Kajaya because it interrupted your plans, wouldn't bringing me back here to the past with all of my future memories just make those interruptions worse? Look kid, this is something you'll learn more about at a later date, but Kami and I aren't the only celestial beings out there. And they really frown upon messing with time. Now you honestly impressed me with your life, all of that hate and aggression directed towards you, but you rose against it. Man, even if it was part of the plan you played your part well. Think of this as a sort of apology for the crappy childhood. Okay, next question. Did you really have to threaten Hinata-chan like that? Shinigami barked out a laugh. Kid, I'm the god of death. Did you honestly think that was real? It was an illusion to get you to listen to me. An advanced ninjutsu if you will. Now if you'll excuse me, I have some matter I need to think about. And just like that, in the blink of his eye, Shinigami was gone, leaving Naruto alone. Naruto laid back in the bed, only rolling over to check the calendar he always kept by his bed. September 4th, huh? If memory serves, then the academy starts tomorrow, and this younger body of mine, it feels so weak and fragile, and ah hell, my chakra control is probably still crappy, not mention years of hand-eye coordination and muscle memory are gone. Just to test his little theory, Naruto rummaged around for rather rusty and damaged kunai. Did I really keep such shitty maintenance on my equipment? Gonna have to fix that before tomorrow. Anyways, he looked to the far wall of his room. Naruto aimed for a cockroach crawling along it. Now in his time, from this distance, Naruto could literally make this shot with his eyes closed. He threw and missed by a complete 2 feet. Shit. Now I remember, I was more into physical fitness and shit than actual training. Sighing, he crawled out of the bed and looked at himself in the mirror. Man, he was scrawny. How often did I eat something other than ramen? Kami, damn, I know the village back then, well now I guess, had it out for me, but I really didn't do myself any favors, did I? Raggedy unkempt blonde hair, a loose-fitting t-shirt and his orange jumper. I really was an idiot. But I've been given a second chance to fix things. But how am I gonna get the things I need to fix this? His first thought had been just go around town under a hinge, but most shops that had what he needed were either run by or hired retired ninjas specifically to spot that kind of trick, and his control was too shoddy to try that anyways. Try and be sneaky and steal what he needed. No, he'd run into the same problem, retired or partly active ninja. And think, Naruto, at one point the entire shinobi world rested on your ability to make decisions. I got an idea, now where does he live? Knock, knock, knock. Iruka was surprised to hear someone knocking on his door at 10 in the morning. He usually didn't have visitors at this time of day, unless it was some other teacher who needed help, but the teachers of the academy were scheduled to go the mandatory meeting at 12, which was when they usually asked around for help. He was even more surprised to find Naruto was the one doing the knocking. Then Naruto. I'm surprised to see you up so early in the morning, and here especially. Is something wrong? Iruka had nothing against Naruto, except for the fact that he could be a great student but chose not to. Jinchuriki or no, he always held Naruto equal to his other students. And he would eventually be willing to sacrifice his life for Naruto. He's the only who would even consider helping me. Naruto was looking at the ground lost in thought until Iruka flicked him on the forehead. Yo Naruto, is there a reason you're here, or are you running away from another prank you pulled? Naruto was quick to shake his head. No, Iruka-sensei, I just came to tell you something and ask a request of you. Naruto didn't hold a lot of respect for many people, but those he did respect were held in the highest esteem. And Iruka Yamino was tied for Jiraiya at the very top. He bowed low and almost shouted, I'm sorry. Iruka's surprise only doubled as he did this. I'm sorry. You haven't done anything, Naruto. Have you? A wary eye was trained on the young would-be shinobi. Still bowing, Naruto said, I've been a terrible student. For this man, and everything he had done for him, Naruto could and would drop his pride. I've skipped your lectures and pulled numerous amounts of pranks on you, even though you were always one of the few people who treated me with care and equality. And I'm sorry. His surprise, and eyebrows for that matter, had reached its peak. I mean, I'm grateful, Naruto, for the apology, but where is all of this coming from? This is out of character for you. I realized that, Iruka-sensei, but I learned over the summer some hard life facts, and I don't know, I want to succeed. I want to become Hokage, and I realize that I won't be able to accomplish that goal unless I get out of the academy and become a ninja. And the other instructors are going to try like hell to make sure that doesn't happen. Hell, most of the village is gonna try like hell to prevent that from happening. Iruka knew all too well how the villagers treated Naruto, and even though he would never forgive himself for it, he used to be part of that crowd too. And Naruto knew it and yet still found it in his heart to forgive him. It almost brought tears to his eyes, but he fought them back and said apology accepted. Naruto. Now what was this request of yours? Naruto handed Iruka an envelope, to which a confused look was his response. The Hokage gives me a monthly allowance, and this month's got brought in early so I could buy supplies for school. However, most shops overprice me for anything worthwhile, and normally what I can afford is worn, used or rotting. I was wondering if Naruto looked away for a brief moment before taking a deep breath. Would you go out and buy the things I need for this year? He bowed again. Oh, well, that is rather well thought of him to ask me. But I have to be at the school by 12 for the meeting. Several seconds of silence. Naruto, a nervous and jittery wreck. Fine, Naruto, I will do this for you. However, I need you to understand it's gonna take a while, plus all of the teachers have to meet at the academy at 12 to go over the curriculum for this year. It's going to be a while until I can get back to you with all of the supplies, understand? Naruto grinned from ear to ear. Thanks, Iruka-sensei. Where do you want to meet? Iruka smiled, how about Ichiraku's around 3? Naruto nodded before dashing off, the first real smile Iruka had ever truly seen him wear. What am I going to do with that unpredictable ball of energy? He looked towards the envelope in his hands. Well, first I'm going to buy him some proper clothes and then burn that orange jumpsuit of his to the ground. Then burn the ashes for good measure. Then he needs proper textbooks and actual ninja gear, not that second-rate crap he has. Ugh, this is gonna be more work than I thought. Naruto was happily sitting at his favorite place even then, atop the fourth Hokage's head. 10 minutes ago he was talking to Iruka nervous as hell, now he was actually happy. It was early enough that he was able to easily ignore the numerous amounts of glares and whispers of the villagers behind his back. His smile dropped ever so slightly, that was one thing he missed. It wouldn't be for another 4 years at least when he stopped Pain's invasion that this village and its inhabitants would truly see Naruto as a human, let alone a hero. Oh man, I have a lot of work ahead of me, that's for sure. What should be the first thing? Naruto, who had taken a reclining position on his back, suddenly rolled to his right as 3 kunai struck the ground with a heavy thud. What the? An assassination attempt already? Come on, I haven't been back for more than a day. Naruto got up fast, taking out his best kunai, which was really only barely usable, and got in a defensive position, glaring at the woodwork behind him. Alright, whoever you are, show yourself and fight me like a man. Oh, trust me Naruto, if we fought right now no amount of dirty tricks would let you win. From the trees came the familiar visage of a smirking Hyuga. Ninigi? What the hell are you doing here? And why the hell did you attack me? What's the big idea, huh? And what do you mean dirty tricks? Now Naruto, have you already forgotten the Chunin exams? Naruto's arms hung limply at his sides as he stared at the Hyuga in front of him. Wait, you came back too? Yeah, Kami wanted to make sure you had some backup for this plan of hers to work. I hope your coming back here was a bit easier than mine. Man, was I egotistical. I wanted to fight me just to prove I was better. It was weird as hell. Yeah, well, Shinigami had younger me under an advanced ninjutsu, made me believe that if he didn't eat my soul thingy whatever the hell it was, he'd hurt Hinata. But it went about how you'd expect it to go. Neji chuckled as he stood beside Naruto, looking out over Konoha, and for the record, the first thing you should is start a very damaging training regimen. Because had I been trying to kill you, you wouldn't have been able to do anything. Naruto glanced over to Neji before laying on the ground like he had been. Speaking of, how did you find me? Well, I checked your old apartment, man, was that place a dump, then Ichiraku's. You weren't at any of those places, so my next stop was here. You told Hinata once that this was your favorite spot in the entire village. And I must say this is probably the smartest decision you've made, it has a nice view. Hey, Naruto feigned indignation. I'll have you know I am full of smart decisions. Neji snorted, like that jumpsuit perhaps. Okay, look, it was fashionable and affordable, thank you very much. Fashionable on what? A cow. You know what, I don't have to answer you. Naruto huffed and looked in the other direction, but a small smile played on his lips. It was fun having someone he could have this kind of banter with. Taking a peek at Neji, the content look on his face said very much the same thing. So how are things at the compound? Neji sighed. I had almost forgotten what it was like to be a side branch member of the Hyuga family. With the war going on, I was gone too long to remember that most main house Hyuga think me less than trash, only above the likes of you and homeless cretins. He pointed to his bare forehead. This seal had me caged for so long, and it's imprisoned the minds of my entire clan. I was brought back to help Lady Hinata be rid of this seal. To free my clan. It is weird, at this point in time, Hinata loves me because we're family, but is hesitant to get near me. I was truly a fool. Neji joined Naruto on the ground, traditional style on his knees. Hey now, you know things will get better. Neji's hands tightened on the pants he wore as he barely was able to say only after I nearly kill her in the Chunin preliminaries. He shook his head as he tried to get the shocked and betrayed look of Hinata out of his mind. I have an uphill battle ahead of me, and I think yours is steeper than mine. At least most of the clan elders think me a genius. It's funny if you think about it, some of the brightest minds they are, with eyes that let them see all. Yet you were the only one who saw how much of a fool I was. Yeah, I was, wasn't I? So what do we do now? Neji's eyes narrowed in concentration. Well, if memory serves, the toughest thing my team and I have to do is some B-rank mission near the border of Iowa. You need to focus on getting through the academy with your head intact. Yeah, like that's going to be easy. Half of the village and almost the entirety of the civilian council is going to take every opportunity to get me kicked out of the academy before I graduate. Why couldn't Kami have sent me to the day before I graduate? Neji smirked because you ruin her plans and she's gotta be petty somehow. Well, Neji, Naruto jumped to his feet. It's been fun, but I have places to be and people to meet. Let's talk again soon, huh? And then with a cheeky finger salute, he jumped over the edge of the cliff in a manner he had done billions of times in the future. I wonder if he realizes he doesn't have the reflex he's used to. Neji mused silently to himself. A resounding shit. Goddamn motherfucking snap ow. Was the only answer Neji needed as he walked to his team's training ground. Iruka could be seen leaving Market Square with many bags, with which he was quick to put in a ceiling scroll. Man, outfitting a kid for his final year at Konoha's Ninja Academy can actually be a lot more troubling than one would think. I mean Kami. No wonder Naruto was always struggling, this cost a lot even for me, who knows how much they were charging for him. He glanced at the unopened envelope of money Naruto had given him. He didn't know why, but something made him pay out of pocket, his own savings. Which wasn't a lot on a teacher's salary, but damn it if he was going to make his poorest student pay these outrageous prices. It must be the teacher in me, now if I'm right, here it is. Iruka walked into the small ramen bar, Ichiraku's Ramen. He didn't know much about the shop, nor anything about the owner and his daughter, save that they were one of the few people that saw Naruto as the small child he was, and not for the demon he contained. A little birdie did tweet that this was one of Naruto's favorite hangouts. Looks like he was early, he'd grab a booth and wait. A young waitress soon came over to get his order. What can I get for you today, sir? Iruka scratched the back of his head and laughed. Actually, I'm waiting on a student of mine to get here first. Once he's here then I'll order, but in the meantime can I have a glass of water? Come to think of it, why was he doing this again? He treated Naruto fairly, yeah, but why the soft spot? Maybe it was because he saw a lot of himself in the young blonde. Or at least how he used to be. Shaking his head, Iruka grabbed at a small glass and took a few swallows. Actually, what did he really know about Naruto? He's 11, his birthday is October 10th, he's hyperactive, has insane stamina and likes ramen. Compared to the rest of my class, I don't really know anything about him. I mean, he works so hard too, if only he had the patience to accept a little guidance, then he'd be a formidable opponent. But he's headstrong, too reckless, too stubborn. Then the person in question came through the curtains that made the entrance to the ramen stand, looking worse for the wear. Standing up quick, Iruka walked over to him. Naruto, are you okay? You look like you fell 100 feet down a mountain. Naruto's looked towards Iruka, slightly surprised to see him there. That's an accurate description. I was doing some training atop the fourth's head and took a tumble down. It's not as bad it looks, my healing factor is already taking care of the broken ribs. Oh my god, Naruto, what happened? AM came rushing over to check the young blonde's injury, a worried expression dawning her face. Did someone hurt you again? Because I swear to god they will meet the business end of my frying pan. It was at this point that rumors of a waitress with near Jounin level skills with cutlery surfaced into Iruka's head. I'm fine, AM. I was training and took a bad fall. No one did this to me but myself. I'll be fine once I have a couple of hot miso ramen in my belly, and I hope you don't mind paying Iruka-sensei, I gave you all of my money. Iruka laughed and tossed Naruto the unopened envelope. Actually, Naruto, I think you're going to be paying today. Seeing the quickly coming look of sadness, Iruka tossed Naruto the sealing scroll, hoping to teach the boy something. Naruto, catching the scroll, knew immediately what it was and almost gave that information away before shutting his mouth with an audible clack. And seemed too smart, or Iruka's going to be curious, and I don't think I can lie convincingly enough to him. What's this, Iruka-sensei? Iruka immediately went into teacher mode, closing his eyes and point a finger to the sky. This, Naruto, is a sealing scroll. The basics of it is that it make transportation of goods easy by eeling them into a different dimension, and then using a burst of chakra, you can unseal the item, or items in this case. It makes carrying a lot of things at once easy, as once sealed they don't add any weight to the scroll they were sealed in. I ended up paying for everything in there with my own money, so I guess you can pay for lunch, huh? Naruto gave a deep bow and said, thank you, Iruka-sensei, I'd be glad to pay for lunch. People were starting to notice and stare, and Iruka gave a boisterous laugh and pulled Naruto into an empty booth. It's fine, Naruto, we're not in school at the moment, please, no need to be so formal. It took a while, but I managed to get all of the things you would need for this year, including some proper clothing. So as soon you can get out of that jumpsuit. But Iruka-sensei, no buts, Naruto, how do you plan to be a decent ninja if you can't even be stealthy? That bright orange is gonna give you away in seconds. I know it has sentimental value, but you need to start taking things seriously. Which means you need to look like you're taking this seriously. I also got you the proper textbooks for this year, so no slacking off, got it? Naruto smiled and nodded his head. Yes, Iruka-sensei, no slacking off for me, though I don't know how I'm gonna curb my addiction to pulling pranks on people. It was then Naruto felt the change in attitude, the shift in the looks on other customers' face, the way their normal looks of hatred differed ever so slightly. Then the memories hit him. It was September 4th, about to be the start of his last year in the Ninja Academy. Oh shit, I almost forgot what today was. If this keeps up, I'm going to get old man Ichiraku, Amne and Iruka-sensei caught in this mess. Shit. Iruka seemed to notice Naruto's smile go tighten ever so slightly. How his eyes started tracing a path throughout the stand and looking behind him. Is everything alright, Naruto? Huh? Oh yeah, everything's fine Iruka-sensei, I just remembered a place I have to be, a thing I gotta do you know. See you later, bye am. And like that Naruto made a quick exit, making note of someone across the street following him. Ah shit, how long has he been tailing me? What Naruto didn't see was Iruka peek his head out of the curtains, holding an envelope. Alright, you can come out now, I know you're following me. Naruto had walked for at least half an hour, going through every back alley and shortcut he could remember, but his tail was smart and tenacious. He was obviously trained, so ninja at the very least. Naruto wouldn't be able to lose him, that's for sure, but a confrontation would not end well. Here's to hoping I can work this out peacefully. The walked out was not who Naruto was expecting. It was one of the civilian students from his class, Chado Yamura, right? Last year of the academy he had to be expelled because of an anger issue. Was presumed dead or MIA after the Sand Sound invasion. What do you want, Yamura? And why have you been following me? I came here to kick your ass, dope. Oh really? That's tough talk for the kid who's rated third worst Jujutsu combatant in our class. It was true. Hand-to-hand combat was not his specialty, he excelled at throwing weapons and mid-range combat, though he'd never beat Tenten in that field. And why do you want to kick my ass today, Yamura? Because idiot, my dad's putting together a hunting party and the thing they've chosen to hunt today is you. So me and some friends at this signal, 2 more students, they weren't from any ninja clan, that much Naruto could remember, appeared from behind him, a boy and a girl are gonna toss you around for a bit and then give you to our parents like a trophy, you see. Oh, so eager to impress mommy and daddy you failed to realize one very important fact. The girl scowled, and what that dope? Naruto backflipped and put his back to a corner, pulling out 2 kunai and getting in a defensive position. You'll be busy carrying your injured away to take me anywhere. Imura pulled out his own set of kunai and grinned, I don't think so, dope. Keep in mind the only reason you can keep up with any of the shits from clans and their fighting style is because you have a lot of stamina. But no style, that's it, and you're even worse using throwing weapons. I think this won't take more than a few minutes. Even though Yamura was the obvious leader, it was the boy to his left, Naruto's right, that was the biggest threat. Small bits of his memories were coming back to him. Dan Lycan, civilian, ranked number 6 amongst male Taijutsu users of his class. Agile and flexible, he would pose the most threat. Naruto wasn't worried about the other 2, who would almost certainly use kunai and shuriken to harass him. They would be aiming for non-vital spots, after all they were only 12. They didn't have the stomach to kill Naruto, let alone the skill to do any actual harm. They were only students still after all. They'd be an annoyance at the most. No, Dan was the one who had the most potential to hurt Naruto at the moment. But at this point in time I haven't undergone Jiraiya's training to protect myself from Jinjutsu, so the girl, Kaylee Nabari, I think, she's a threat too if I give her enough time to cast a jutsu at me. No easy way to get to her, she's in the back of the group. Yamura's got good aim, but should be easily able to avoid him and his weapons. Seriously, do I need to waste my time with this? Just as Naruto was getting ready to rocket forward to try and get a quick surprise attack, when from the end of the alleyway a voice shouted, what the hell are you doing? All 4 students jumped in the air, 3 spinning around to face a very pissed off looking Iruka, his face red with rage. Iruka sense. What are you doing here? Yamura was starting to sweat bullets, as was Kaylee's and Dan's. Their eyes were darting back and forth from Naruto to Iruka. I asked for their help, Iruka sensei. 4 astonished faces turned towards Naruto. I'm sorry, what did you say, Naruto? It is no hidden fact that I am the dead last dope of our class when it comes to academic skills and only slightly above the bottom when it comes to Taijutsu, Jinjutsu, and Ninjutsu. It's also widely known that among the civilian population of the class most of them hate me, an orphan, for being considered equal to the clan heirs with which make up a good part of our class, where they are seen below them. If given the opportunity most of them would love to beat me, or at least try to a bloody pulp. Iruka nodded his head sadly. While most of the clan heirs didn't consider themselves over their classmates, the fact they from a ninja clan, one of the bigger ones, gave them a considerable advantage with which the civilian part of the class always held a small bit of resentment, with the exception of Naruto of course. His insane amount of chakra and stamina allowed him to keep up, for the most part, with the likes of Kiba and Sasuke. And what does that have to do with whatever is happening here, Naruto? Right, if given the chance they would happily beat me, so I thought I would give my colleagues that very chance, spar with me 1-on-3, basic sparring rules. Because in the real world that may very well be what I face someday. They get their chance to fight me, and because they don't like me they're going to try extra hard to beat me, in return I have to fight for my life to try and win. It's the closest thing to a real encounter I can come up with without actually fighting an enemy ninja. Iruka had to admit that the idea, well terrible as it relied on the goodwill of students who wanted to bodily harm to him, had merit. But he couldn't allow this, sorry Naruto, but I will not allow this. You 3, he looked towards the now terrified students, go home, because this was apparently Naruto's idea. I won't give you all detention, now leave. They were quick to run away, not looking behind them in the slightest, leaving Iruka alone with Naruto. Alright Naruto, what was really going on? I told you Iruka-sensei. No Naruto, you lied so they wouldn't get in trouble. Now the truth out with it. Naruto sighed and looked towards the ground. There's a hunting party, a mob, forming with the sole purpose of trying to kill me. I don't know why, but they haven't formed like this since I joined the academy. I could tell when we were at Ichiraku's. I left so you, AM and the old man wouldn't get caught in the middle of it. Imura wanted to impress his father who was part of the hunt, so he convinced Dan and Kaylee to beat me up and then they'd turn me over to the mob. Iruka was stunned into silence, his fist clenching in anger. It was bad enough that the adults of the village were out to kill a small child, now they were getting the children involved. Angry did not even begin to describe how Iruka felt. He reached into his pocket and handed Naruto his money. It was official, he had to help Naruto no matter the cost. Naruto, you left this at Ichiraku's, also take these. He handed Naruto a key, much to his confusion. Those are the keys to my house, those hunting you more than likely know where you live, so you're going to be staying the night at my house. Make sure no one sees you, okay? Now hurry up, I have some business I need to attend to, I shouldn't be gone too long. Tears were forming at the edges of Naruto's eyes. Thank you Iruka-sensei. Iruka knelt down so he was eye level with Naruto. You can thank me by taking things seriously, and if you want to pay me back for my kindness, then graduate at the top of your class this year, huh? Now go, I'll be back in a bit. He patted Naruto on the back. The moment his back turned, Iruka's smile dropped into a frown as he started heading towards the Hokage's tower. It was only 4 in the afternoon, the Hokage would be there. I'm sorry, could you repeat that for me? I thought it might come as a shock to you, but you were never supposed to die, though noble as your sacrifice was, it was Hisashi who was supposed to take the attack and die protecting Hinata and Naruto. You were to live and marry Tenten, have a daughter, help get rid of the cage bird seal. I am not sorry for what I've done, Kami-sama. I don't expect you to be sorry, Neji. You did what you did to protect those you held dear, just as Naruto did. Wait, what did Naruto do? To put it bluntly, young one, Naruto blew himself up, killing Kajaya in the blast. What? Yes, that is what happened, his plan worked, he managed to take Kajaya with him. Shinigami however had other plans. We sent him to the past, to the day before his final year in the ninja academy, because of your noble sacrifice and the fact you died too young. I would offer you a choice. Would you go back in time to help Naruto prevent the unsealing of Kajaya, or would you like to stay here in heaven with your parents? Wait, you're giving me the option to help Naruto change history. Yes I am, though the road will be hard and peerless, and you won't be able to save everyone. You could, however. I'll do it. You didn't let me explain the other option, thought. I am sorry, Kami-sama, but I don't want to hear the other option. I'm a fighter, my place is out there helping make a difference. Well spoken, Neji, go say goodbye to your parents, I will be waiting. Then Kami seemed to fade away as Neji turned towards the delicately designed red oak door that made up his old home. The one he lived in with his father and mother before one sacrificed himself and the other used a lot of rope and desperation and grief. Neji grimaced as old childhood memories surfaced up. He gently opened the door and walked down a hallway, going into his father's study. The man in question was laughing with his wife on the couch. And then I told Hisashi to shove it. He may be my brother, but I'll be damned if I let him push me around. Ha ha ha. Neji smiled sadly, he did enjoy the small amount of time he got to spend with his parents. Seeing them again, telling him all about his life. He coughed roughly to get their attention. Oh hey son, his mom, Kami, he missed her terribly after Hisashi made his decision. She tried to be so strong for both Neji and herself. One day it just became too much. By then Neji was a full-fledged genin and able to take care of himself, but he still missed her. Hi mom, dad, we need to talk. Oi Neji, Earth to Neji, you in there? Neji was cut off of his musing by Tenten, who was poking his headband. Neji shook himself, his mind going from heaven to his training ground with his team. He stood up, I guess time's up. Dude, it's been up, you were meditating pretty hard there. Look, Neji paled slightly as he saw the evening sky. Yeah, guy sensei thought you were ignoring him and Lee, and they did their thing, and they've been running laps around the entirety of Konoha on their hands with boulders tied to both feet. For the past 2 hours. Neji had the decency to look a little ashamed. Sorry Tenten, had a lot on my mind. Tenten leaned against the tree Neji had been under. Now that he had a chance to stretch, Neji realized how stiff his muscles were. So Neji, what's on your mind? Neji frowned, in the future he had never tried for romance, always said he'd get around to it after he could settle down. Hell, he died a virgin who had never kissed a girl before. He'd try things differently this time around. How about we discuss this over some hot food? I have a feeling that Lee and Guy sensei are going to be at this a while, and I for one have no intent on being here when they finish. Tenten blushed, caught off guard by Neji's sudden boldness. He'd never shown so much as a passing interest in the brunette and now he was asking her out to eat. Oh yeah sure I know this great burger joint just a few blocks away from here. Follow me. And she quickly rushed off, trying to get her beating heart and blushing face under control. Niji was actually having difficulty trying to keep up with her, so this is what women are like when they get flustered. Imagine if they could utilize this power in the field, they'd truly be a force of nature. Later that day, look Haruka I know you're upset, but upset Hokage-sama I am beyond upset, my own students were helping to kill Naruto. I know you've done everything you can to try and make him safe, but he could tell a mob was forming to hunt him just by the attitude change in a small ramen bar. That's not something an 11-year-old should do, hell most seasoned Anbu can't do that. Haruka that is enough. Hiruzen blasted the room with a small amount of Kai which only marginally worked to try and get the furious teacher under control. No Hokage-sama it is not enough. You need to do more for him. What more can I do Haruka? I placed Naruto in your class because I thought you an exceptional judge of character. I gave him his own house in the quietest part of Konoha that would still allow him to get to the academy at a decent time. I have a whole Anbu squad on an assignment to routinely make sure the boy gets to that home at night. There's not a lot more I can do because the council will not allow me to. What more would you have me do Haruka? Haruka glared at Hiruzen, really Hokage-sama, must I be the one to remind you that a ninja village, no matter how diplomatic, no matter how benevolent, is a dictatorship? That you are our sole leader. That no matter how high and mighty the pompous pricks on the council think they are, their only roles is to be your advisors. No you do not Haruka. Hiruzen sagged in his chair, looking his elderly age for once, but the civilian council has only grown more ambitious, and I will admit I have been complacent while they gather their strength, and I fear if I try to take that strength away they will cause a mess. Then you set an example Hokage-sama. Of all the things Hiruzen was expecting to come out of Haruka's mouth, that was not one of them. I am sorry could you repeat that? You set an example, you're the Hokage, every choice made in this village is approved by you, whether it be a new building being made, an old one being torn down, or for instance who sits on the council. You're known as the professor, the man who trained under Tabamara Senju himself, and in turn trained the legendary Sannin. Who are they to tell you what to do, in your village? You are right Haruka, I have let them order me around for too long, it's time they remember just who they're dealing with. The first thing I am going to do is get Naruto someplace safe, he shouldn't have to live in fear of a mob breaking down his door in the middle of the night. Haruka smiled as with every word, Hiruzen confidence reflected in his eyes, showing why he was the Hokage. Do not worry about that Hokage-sama, with your permission I have an idea. Oh really Haruka what did you have in mind? An hour later, this may work Haruka, no I'm the Sandaime goddamn Hokage, and I don't need their permission. With a mighty roar Hiruzen Sarutobi stamped a piece of paper, the word approved written leering bright red. Now go attend to the boy, make sure he grows into a young man over this year, and remember if I am not satisfied with what I see, then you will lose this privilege, understood? Hi Hokage-sama. Haruka bowed at the waist before leaving the Hokage alone in his office, he took out his pipe, lit it and took a deep puff. He motioned with his finger and an Anbu appeared, bowing at his side. Yes Hokage-sama. Call an emergency council meeting, it's time I set a certain amount of fools in their place. Hiruzen, with a hard stare stood up and started walking out of high office. Yes Hokage-sama, and for what it's worth the Anbu said, hope in his voice it's good to have you back. Then he shunshined away in a swirl of leaves. I'm putting oil in a flame, I'm too old for this shit, and damn it, it's time I started acting like the cage I am. Then he hit his finger. Hahaha. Tenten's loud laughter could be heard throughout the entire restaurant as Niji sat across from her, a small laugh escaping his lips. This was fun, he'd never actually gone on a date before, so he didn't know what to expect or how to act, but this was going better than he'd hoped. Tenten was just finishing some story from the blacksmith she apprenticed at. Well that was interesting Tenten, he looked out the window as he thought he saw a familiar blonde pass by the window. Tenten, please excuse me one moment, I need to go relieve myself. Tenten rolled her eyes and started digging into a plate of food that had just arrived fine she said through mouth full of delicious food, but don't blame me if there's no food when you get back. Niji quickly headed to the bathroom, doing the correct hand signs he said by Akugan. He looked through the walls of the food joint into the adjoining alleyway, where he was surprised to see Naruto, in what appeared to be some sort of face-off. Shit now I remember what today was, a mob formed and attacked a lot of different shelters, didn't Naruto say once that they had been looking for him? He looked at the nearby window, before looking towards the door where he could hear the sound of people talking and having a generally good time. Tenten is gonna kill me for this. He snuck out the window and hurriedly made his way to the roof, overlooking the alleyway where he saw some sort of civilian students blocking Naruto's escape. It was Naruto's voice he heard when he came into sound range. Oh so eager to impress mommy and daddy you failed to realize one very important fact. The girl scowled and what that dope. Naruto backflipped and put his back to a corner, pulling out two kunai and getting in a defensive position. You'll be busy carrying your injured away to take me anywhere. Imura pulled out his own set of kunai and grinned, I don't think so dope. Keep in mind the only reason you can keep up with any of the shits from clans and their fighting style is because you have a lot of stamina. But no style, that's it, and you're even worse using throwing weapons. I think this won't take more than a few minutes. Neji watched on, ready to jump in and assist Naruto if the need arose, but fortunately for him, High Byakugan saw Iruka making a quick entrance to the scene. Unfortunately, his Byakugan also saw Tenten leave the building, tears falling down from her face. Oh shit, Tenten, I completely forgot. Seeing that Iruka had things well under control, Neji jumped from the roof to the main entrance. The bill had already been paid for by him, so he didn't need to worry about that. Okay, so if memory serves, Tenten's house is down that street where she ran off to, and Ino's shop shouldn't be too far from here. Tenten had never felt so ashamed. Once she realized Neji had left her, she felt the betrayal as tears stung her cheeks. She made a quick exit and almost sprinted to her house, where she vehemently ignored her dad, slammed the door, and locked herself in her room, where she curled up on her bed and started wailing her grief. She had genuinely liked Neji. He was cute, strong, determined, everything she was looking for in a guy. It didn't matter that he was a side branch member, she liked Neji for who he was. The soft side of him that he didn't let anybody see. She'd seen it once, when an orphan kid was being bullied, he stepped in and swiftly dealt with the attackers, before making sure the boy was taken back to his home. It was then she decided he was the one, or so she thought. This had hurt her, leaving her alone when he was the one who asked her out. Was she not good enough? Not many people knew, and by that basically no one, but her dad. Tenten suffered from a minor inferiority complex. Was she not pretty enough? I mean, yeah, I'm not as busty as some of the other chicks from our graduating class, but at least I can defend myself. Right. More tears came through her eyes, and Tetsuya, listening from the other side of the door, his pleading falling on deaf ears, sighed and slid down the door. She was just a young chid, one who was expected to kill and die for Konoha, but that was a different matter. She sound T have to be dealing with the thoughts of a broken heart, let alone dealing with her own. Whoever this boy is, he really has made an impact on her. Then he heard knocking coming from the door. Probably clients. The hefty blacksmith got to his foot and made his way to the door. His eyes narrowed as they landed on the Hyuga of her team and mostly likely reason for her present of being. Though the flowers in his hands were interesting. Neji-san, can I help you? Yes, Tetsuya-san, is Tenten here? I fear there may have been a misunderstanding and it personally affected her. So the young boy is indeed the reason she's so heartbroken. His hand twitched and started going for the cleaver blade he kept near the door before stopping himself. No, Tetsuya, you are better than this. If something has happened, then the only reason he's here is to apologize. Yes, that's it. Though having no outward indication his thoughts had strayed to murder, Neji got the weirdest feeling he just dodged a bullet. Tetsuya nodded and stepped back to allow Neji inside the house. I don't know what you've done, boy, but I only pray you can fix it. Neji grimaced as he could hear her wails from here. He really needed to find the right words to say that could fix the situation. He was in front of her door, normal save for the sign that said intruders beware, armed, trained and very dangerous. He gulped and then he knocked loudly, saying, Tenten, it's Neji. I think there's been 8 years of trained instinct saved him as he took a step back and half a giant shuriken went through the door. Then he had to roll to the left as not half a second later, a barrage of senbon, regular shuriken and kunai followed into the wall behind where Neji had been standing. By now Tenten's crying had stopped and been replaced with heavy huffs. If one were to look through the hole in the door, they would see a dark aura surrounding her form and her eyes glowing red, as all women do when severely pissed off. Oh Neji, she ate in a sing-song voice, let's play, I made some new toys just for you. Neji winced as one shuriken managed to cut his arm. Tetsuya quickly stepped in to help him up. Right, she's done lost it now, boy. I'd suggest running as far from here as you can while I try and calm her down. No, Tetsuya-san, I'm the reason she's like this at the moment, so I will fix this. I've sparred with Tenten long enough to know how she fights. I'll wait till she tires herself out and smash. Tenten door shattered into millions of tiny wooden shards and the girl in question stepped out holding a giant hammer, with which she quickly locked onto Neji and threw it at him. He ducked and it went halfway into the wall at the end of the hallway. But first, I'm going to get her away from here. You want me? Come get me. And then Neji did the most honorable thing a man could do in this situation, he ran. Tenten gave chase, but stopped by her father's side and smiled, saying, sorry dad, I'll fix it when I get home. And she was on the hunt again. Tetsuya for his part just shook his head and went about collecting all of Tenten's thrown weapons she had left behind. She's more like her mother than she realizes. I do hope she manages to fix things with that Hyuga boy. I like him. Here is in what's all of this about him. Why have you called this meeting? Kaharu was in the middle of a nice meal when he had received this message. In fact, most of the civilian council seemed upset at the urgent meeting when there didn't appear to be anything urgent to discuss about. The ninja council, however, seemed different. The veteran ninja were eyeing Hiruzen for some reason. Danzo was the first to spot it. The glint in Hiruzen's eye, the way he held himself, broadening his shoulders instead of slouching them, how his head was held higher, more proud. Has the professor truly returned to us? Has the Sandaime Hokage finally found his steel? I have called this meeting to put fools in their place, namely the civilian council. His eyes turned cold as he stared at Kaharu, his old teammate, who looked shocked. Hiruzen, what is the meaning of this? Hiruzen snapped his finger, and immediately two Anbu appeared behind Kaharu, their blades at his throat. You Kaharu are under arrest for conspiracy, attempted murder, and threatening the safety of Konoha. Immediately taking his place as my direct advisor is Danzo Shimura. He didn't like Danzo, but the man had resources, and trouble was coming to Konoha, and Hiruzen would need those resources. Hiruzen looked to the rest of the council as Kaharu was taken away, with no small amount of displeasure which he made known. To the rest of you, I may have gotten complacent in my old age, but no more. This is Konohagakure no Sato, the village hidden in the leaves. Tabamara Senju entrusted it to me when he sacrificed himself to save me during the Second Ninja World War. This village falls under a dictatorship, and I am the sole ruler. No official decisions get made unless I give it a yes. Is that understood by everyone? Most were staring at Hiruzen with wide eyes. He was standing at his full height by now, but most bowed and said, "Hi Hokage-sama." Good, then you all are dismissed, except for you Danzo. Stay, you and I need to talk. The entire council room was emptied in record time, leaving Hiruzen with Danzo, a warhawk who decided to speak first. It's as good to see you have finally found your still old friend. Yes, and to think it took a school teacher to remind me who I am, what I was. I made you my advisor for one specific reason. And what would that be Hokage-sama? Danzo had a pretty good idea, but he needed to hear Hiruzen say it. You're rude Anbu. I told you to disband it and you haven't. But now I plan to use them. That had not been what Danzo was expecting, but it wasn't the worst case scenario. Let's say this is true Hiruzen, what would you have my men do? You should know as well as I that spies from Iwa, Kumo, Kiri, have managed to infiltrate our village. I have reason to believe they were blackmailing Kaharu and are blackmailing other members of the council to further the agenda of their own village. You are to use whatever means necessary to find these spies and bring them to me, alive or dead does not matter. In return I will make your Root Ninja and Anbu Black Ops program. Danzo thought over it. He had always played by the shadow, in the dark, but this, acting out in the open. It would work for a while. Fine Hiruzen, you have a deal. Would I remain the leader of Root? Hiruzen laughed. Do not try and fool me Danzo. I know that the only one they are loyal to is you. You will remain their leader and you will report to me every action your ninja take. I want a full dossier of your ninja, who is en route. By sundown, Danzo, do not fail me. We've been enemies for a long time, even now I know you have some hidden agenda, as you know I have one. But right now we need to work together. We have always worked towards the same objective Hiruzen, peace for Konoha, we just go about it with different ideologies. But you are right, the time for differences needs to be put aside, war is coming to Konoha and we need to work together, on that we are agreed. You will have your list. He held out his good hand to Hiruzen. Here's to a prosperous relationship Hiruzen. Hiruzen took the offered hand and shook it. Then I will be on my way, Hokage-sama. Just as Danzo left, Shikaku entered and Hiruzen did a few hand seals and a seal array appeared on the floor beneath him and Shikaku. Did you get all of that? Shikaku nodded his head. Yeah, I heard everything. And what do you think? Danzo definitely has something planned. I wouldn't be too surprised to find out later that he conveniently forgot to place a few names on that list or how widespread his operations really is. It's a risk we're going to have to take though if this information of yours is correct. Thank you Shikaku, that will be all. Hiruzen was playing a dangerous game, but when you were the head of the leading superpower anything you did was a dangerous game. I only hope I make the right choices. If he messed, more lives would be lost, but he needed to get control of his own village again. And that means dealing with the first pair of spies that came to the village, that I know of. And then Hiruzen shunshined away, appearing in front of what looked to be an ordinary ramen bar. Niji was on one knee, his clothes torn to shreds, and there were a multitude of scratches littering every corner of his body. None were very deep, and only a few were causing any serious damage, but he was almost out of chakra. He was at his team's training ground and struggling to catch his breath. Man Tenten, you are one tough opponent when you're serious. The training ground in question was in the same shape as Niji, heavily damaged with different weapons laying everyone, in the trees, in the dummies, which ones were even still standing anyway, and all over. Across from Niji was an equally exhausted Tenten, on both knees, her scrolls behind her fingers bleeding at the joints from controlling her weapons the way she did. Yeah, I know, I train and train and train. It is rather impressive actually, to be able to wield and control so many different weapons. You must be a savant. Stop trying to butter me up, now that I don't have pure murder, wanna tell me what the hell happened? The situation was happening outside the restaurant. I went to handle it. By the time I got back inside you were gone. Neji looked at the completely ruined bouquet of gardenias to his right. I bought those in an attempt to apologize to you, but then you threw a dozen paper bombs at them. Fenton had the decency to blush and look away. Well, I thought you asked me on a date and ditched me. What else is a girl supposed to do? Neji gave her a blank look. Never forget Tenten's a very blunt person. Well, Ten-chan. Tenten's blush furthered at the nickname. Most girls don't wield weapons like a surgeon. And to be frank, I did ask you out on a date, it just went horribly wrong, and I'm sorry. Oh, how the hell am I supposed to respond to that, Neji? You've never been so open before. What the hell's gotten into you? Not once today have I heard you say anything about destiny and fate. Neji laughed before falling on his back. Oh, nothing, Ten-chan, a poor boy with no clan and I got into a fight yesterday. He was weak but held his conviction strongly to his chest. He beat me and called me a genius. It was a humbling experience. Tenten stared at Neji in disbelief. Someone from no clan actually beat Neji. And that news wasn't spread around the entire village by now. What the hell? So what does this mean now? Now? I take you on another date, one which I see to completion, and then like a proper gentleman, I escort you home. Oh really? And who's to say I want to go on another date? By now Tenten had fallen on her back too and was staring at the dwindling sun in the evening sky. Is that a no then? Fine, I guess you'll have the honor of taking me to Takumi's BBQ tomorrow. Before Neji could cry out his outrage at such an expensive place, a voice said, "Dear Kami, what happened here?" Clank 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 clank. Guy and Lee walked over to the tired ninja. It looks like you two did some heavy sparring in mine and Lee's absence. These new bodies are pretty solid. A young well-muscled man in maybe his mid-30s, reddish-yellow eye grinning over fanged teeth. This one knew how to wield a sword and use the lightning style, a rouge from Kumoha. How about you, Jezebel? He turned towards his companion. He identified Jezebel, a busty fair-skinned woman wearing some sort of battle kimono with blue eye and equally blue hair, shook her head. This one will do for now, but her boobs are gonna be a distraction. They're entering E-Cup at the moment, shit. But she seemed to be well versed in ninjutsu and jinjutsu. A rouge from Iowa actually. Do you remember the mission, Alistair? Alistair laughed as his honed ears picked up on the sound of a moving caravan near them. Yeah, kill the boy, go to heaven. Haha, that should be a piece of cake, but before that, why don't you and I try and see how good our new bodies are? Jezebel grinned and pulled out some senbon. I think that's a good idea for once. 20 minutes later, Alistair was wiping the blood off of his blade, a nifty-looking blade, running about 5 feet before meeting a white leather-bound handle. It was sharp, if the multitude of dismembered bodies were anything to attest to. He whistled, man, this blade is sharp, I'd hate to be on the receiving end of it. How about you, Jezebel? Jezebel while licking some blood off her finger and giggled. These babies, she cupped her breast, aren't gonna be as big a problem as I thought. She's not good up close in a melee, but damn does it feel good to rip these apes apart with my hands. Hey now, no eating the bodies, we want people to find these, spread a little bit of terror. A small rustle from the caravan caught both of their attention. Alistair grinned and held on finger to his mouth. Leaping to his feet, he started sneaking to the caravan, and with a sudden movement he ripped off the sheet. He startled a dark-skinned 8-year-old who started scrambling back. Now Alistair grinned, showing off all of his canines. We aren't gonna hurt ya, no, you're gonna tell a story. See, my friend here, we're hunting someone, and more people are gonna die until we find them. You tell whoever finds you that this stops when this kid is found. Alistair threw the boy a picture. On it was some kid, maybe a few years older than him, with blonde hair and blue eye. His most distinct feature were 3 whisker marks on the sides of his face. He looked up and the scary man and woman were gone. Iruka walked to his house. It was getting late, but there was still things he had to get to prepare for the new school year. Man, the life of a teacher is a lot harder than one would imagine, but it's worth it. He was at the door when he smelled fish. Delicious cooking if his nose was correct, but the only person who should be at High House was Naruto, and it was Naruto he quickly ran in, kunai at the ready. Naruto. What? Naruto poked his head around the corner, a trail of smoke following him, and the sizzle and pop of a salmon after that. You're cooking? Wait, you know how to cook? I live on my own, and I do eat things other than ramen, it's just cheap and good. I rarely get the opportunity to cook with anything other than egg noodles. Oh, well that makes sense I guess. Did you run into any trouble on your way here? Naruto shook his head. Nah, getting here was fine, didn't take long until I found your pantry, wanted to cook something I can actually make to say thank you. Iruka blushed slightly and laughed, scratching the back of his head. You didn't have to do that for me, Naruto, especially after the ramen bar, but thank you. Well, you're letting me spend the night, Iruka-sensei, so I figured it's the least I can do. Iruka chuckled nervously as he held out another scroll. Actually, this is for you, Naruto. The Hokage and I had an agreement. He's getting you a new house, and you're staying here for the time being. I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of going to your house, if you'd even want to call it that, and sealed up anything I thought you think is worth keeping." This time Naruto didn't even try to stop the tears as they came to his face. "Haruka-sensei." Haruka smiled brightly. "I am a teacher above all else, Naruto. I philosophize putting your students above all else. And you are never going to achieve your full potential if you're stuck trying to provide for everyday life. There is a catch to this, however." Naruto's eyes narrowed ever so slightly. "And what's that, Haruka-sensei?" Haruka walked over to a stack of books. "I am to catch you up on all of the material and work that the academy has unfortunately neglected you. So when I said if you'd want to pay me back graduate at the top of your class, well apparently now you have to." Naruto was speechless, nodding his head. "Yeah, Haruka-sensei, I can do that." "Good, now Naruto, I need you to do me a favor." "Yeah, Haruka-sensei." "Go change into those clothes I gave you and give me that horrendous jumpsuit. I plan to burn it to ash and then burn the ashes." "But Haruka-sensei." "No buts, Naruto, remember what I said about taking things serious. Now's the time to start. Bathrooms down the hall, third door on the right. Now hurry up, I'll keep your salmon from burning up." He was grumbling as he walked down the hall, but Naruto grabbed the scroll and opened it up and pushed a little chakra into it. The scroll went poof and 5 sealing scrolls popped out, labeled school supplies, ninja supplies, clothes, ninja clothes, and 1 labeled surprise. In order of appearance. "Wow, trust the teacher to keep things methodical. Works for me though." He grabbed the 1 marked ninja cloth and brought 3 sets of the same suit, which was a fishnet shirt made out of an iron-like tactile, a gray shirt with dark, pocketed cargo pants, and a black jacket with a leaf emblem on the right sleeve and the whirlpool emblem on the left sleeve, with darkish gray combat boots. What also came out were a set of kunai and shuriken holsters which he kept strapped to his waist and legs. He reached down and grabbed the scroll marked surprise, and might as well see what this is while I'm at it. What he got was the biggest surprise of all, a shortened katana, just longer than a wakizashi, a navy blue blade met a pure white handle gourd before extending to an equally blue handle. The gourd was actually the whirlpool symbol, where the black was replaced with white. "Wow, now I've definitely gonna have to learn, maybe even impress B whenever I see him next." Thump. That caught Naruto's attention, because that sounded an awful lot like a body hitting the floor. Sheathing the katana, Naruto brought out a kunai and crouched, peeking his head around the corner. He couldn't see the kitchen or the adjoining living dining room, but from what he could see, Haruka was out cold, his feet just visible leading into the kitchen. "Come out, Naruto, it is only me." At the sound of Kami's voice, Naruto rushed into the room, her form less glowing than the last time he saw her. He immediately got into a bound position. "Kami-sama." "Rise, young one, I apologize for putting your comrade here to sleep, but I felt what we were discussing should be in private. He will awaken once I live, I assure you." "No, it's okay, Kami-sama, something tells me Haruka had a long day." "You're enjoying your first day being back, I take it." "It's all the same, yet so many different things are happening. Like I'm going to be staying with Haruka until the Hokage can get me my own private place. He even got me these cool new clothes." "Yes, I would believe so, they look nice on you by the way. I assume you already know about Niji." "Yeah, you sent him back in time too, why did you do that?" "Not that I'm complaining, mind you, it's just I'm curious. He was never supposed to die protecting you and Hinata, that was supposed to be his Ashi. But I digress, I came here for more than to get your opinion, I came here with a warning." "The warning?" "Yes, it seems my brother has let some lower level demons into this world with the prime objective of hunting you." "But why would he do that?" "He believes, I imagine, that you being here with all of your future memories will make things too easy on you." "I cannot kill them, I'm not allowed to be here on this realm, I am only able to talk to you by giving a devout follower a fraction of my power, the best I can do to assure your safety is to warn you. I am still trying to figure out what they look like. I only know he sent 2 and what their mission is." "Oh great, well I guess I shouldn't have expected things to be this easy." "Thank you, Kami-sama. For letting me know, is that all?" "Yes, I do believe that is all. A word advice before I leave, I recommend training as hard as you can. You will need to be prepared for tough times ahead. Now I must be off, before I depart from this world, there are things I must attend to. Goodbye, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze." And she left, Naruto watching her as she left. The moment she closed the door, Haruka shot up, taking a deep breath. "Ah, Haruka-sensei, you're up." "Naruto?" He looked around in confusion. "Yes. Is everything alright, Haruka-sensei?" "Sorry, I must have fallen asleep waiting on you, it's been a long day after all." "Oh, I see you found the surprise I bought you." "Yeah, thanks, but why did you buy the sword?" Haruka smiled sheepishly. "Well, Naruto, everyone in your class, at least those who have the highest chance of passing, have their own unique thing that gives them an advantage. Kiba, for instance, has Akamaru, Hinata her Byakugan, Choji's and Akamichi, so on and so forth. There's only so much your high chakra reserves can do for you, so I thought I would help give you an advantage over them." "Well, thank you, Haruka-sensei, I promise to learn as much as I can." Oh, don't worry about that part, Naruto. I have a friend who's willing to teach you some techniques on wielding a blade after classes. An old friend who owes me favor really. Now let's not worry about school for the night, we have this lovely salmon you cooked up to eat after all, and it'd be a shame to let it get cold. Naruto nodded and started cutting up the fish, a smile playing on his lips. Naruto, wake up, you'll be late for school. Naruto woke with a start, rolling off of the couch with a loud crash, followed by an equally loud shit. It was 7 in the morning, and Naruto in his weary state realized he could have been asleep for another 20 minutes at the very least. Maybe 30 if he was feeling brave. But no, he was living with a school teacher for the foreseeable future, and Iruka was gonna make damn well sure Naruto was gonna be on time. And prepared and made sure he did his homework and studied. Ah shit, what have I got myself into? Up Iruka-sensei, please just be quiet. Iruka grinned, he had no intention of being a father till later in his life, but he thought this is what one must feel like. Now Naruto, I am going to go take the first shower, if I come back and you have fallen back asleep, I am grabbing a bucket of ice. And I will show no mercy, there's cereal in the cabinet above the fridge or fruit on the table if you want a light snack. Oh, and good morning. Naruto sat up, his back stretching against the remarkably soft fabric of the couch, before standing up. Well, a good night's sleep is better than what I got at my old house, plus I might actually be able to take a warm bath. But before that there's something I need to see if I can do. Naruto stretched his still sleeping muscles and sat down in a meditative stance, closing his eyes and breathing deep. I should be able to reach my mindscape by meditation. When I was this young, the only time I managed to meet Kurama was when I was knocked unconscious. But that's besides the point, I need to talk to her. He started breathing out at an even rhythm, long deep breaths until his sense of time started to blur, and the noise of the apartment, Iruka whistling while taking a shower, some random person walking their dog, started to fade away. He felt like he had been at this for at least 30 minutes before all sound faded away entirely, and he opened his mind to see the sewer he was so familiar with. The bronze pipes leading straight to his favorite fox. Yes. I did it, now I just need to find Kurama and explain to her that. Yes, I know she's a woman, that I'm from the future, and I need her to open a mental link. That should be easy, all before Iruka gets out of the shower. Great, now I haven't had to do this much in a while, but I need to following the pipes, and I should appear in front of her cage. Naruto followed the dimly lit sewer entrance, wondering if there were anything he could do to change it, but for now he would stick to his simple goal, talk to Kurama, figure out some sort of training regimen, and now learn how to wield a sword. So much is already different than my past, I stopped a mob, I'm staying with Iruka, if he's to be believed Hokage is more confident, Niji's going to make things different as well. I need to plan, because my future is sure to be different than the one I will be facing, and my knowledge will only get me so far for so long. I have to admit this is exciting. Knowing things, yet not knowing what's going to happen, is this what it feels like to be Shikamaru? It is good to see you, kid. Naruto had been so lost in his own thoughts that he didn't realize that his walking had led him to Kurama's chamber and past her cage, he would have walked right into her paw had she not called out to him. Oh Kurama. We need to talk. About the mission Kami sent you on, yes I am already aware about it, I too was sent back in time. To help guide you kid, guide you towards the best path to save as many people as possible. Naruto just blinked at the giant fox. Oh, well that makes things considerably more easy for me, saves me the confusing argument and debate. Kurama let out a barking laugh, it is good to see you kid, I must admit that not feeling the mental link has left me a bit disorientated. So then why haven't you set it up yet? Kurama grimaced, letting a slight bit of chakra leak out, small tendrils of her demonic chakra reaching for Naruto, they got within an inch away from the bars, before the seal glowed and they disappeared. Your seal is too strong, without you willingly calling upon my chakra, I don't have the strength to set it up, and you don't have the control to use it yet. In your past it was the battle of the bridge, all that anger you felt against Haku was able to weaken the seal ever so slightly, it was then I was able to chip away at it. Maybe things will be different, but at the moment it's going to be a while before the seal's weak enough this time around. What if I just tear away the seal, like I did beforehand? I would advise against that for the time being. When you did it last time, your body had completely adapted to my chakra. I can confidently say if you did tear away the seal now, my chakra would tear you apart. Literally, you're just not strong enough to take my chakra, even half of it, full brunt. Well damn, how do you think I should fix it then? Well your swordplay I can't help you with, you'll need Yugao, the Anbu chick to help you there, but I can help come up with a training regimen. The first thing you need to start chakra control exercises and get the Shadow Clone Jutsu in your arsenal as soon as possible. Well you're right about the Shadow Clone Jutsu, the moment I get that I can start really getting into chakra control and maybe some elemental techniques, I might want to look into learning some more wind style ninjutsu. And maybe a little earth style one, and am I still able to change my chakra to the other types, or will I have to wait for Hagoromo to give me that ability? Ugh, so many questions and so little answers. Well, the chakra one can be solved with chakra paper, as well as I'd have Iruka visit the nearest ninja archive for scrolls on techniques, because the people don't see you as a hero yet, then they're probably going to be against you learning anything even close to ninja related. Again, you're right, and, hey Naruto, are you awake? I told you I'd get a bucket if you fell asleep. The voice of Iruka rang throughout the small chamber area, echoing slightly, making Naruto jump and look around wildly. Is that what it's like for you? Kami, that was loud. Hey, after 17 years, you get used to it, I'd go see your teacher. I don't think he was joking about that ice bucket. Naruto nodded his head and closed his eyes, concentrating again, letting the sounds of the sower fade into the sounds of life inside and outside of Iruka's apartment. The sound of Iruka collecting ice from the freezer getting Naruto on his feet fast. Wait, I'm up Iruka-sensei. Sorry, didn't think I'd fall asleep sitting straight up. Iruka, who had been bent over, picking up said ice bucket, smiled and put it down. Good to see you're up, Naruto. Go take a shower before we go to the academy. He reached over and grabbed a bowl. I'm making cereal, did you eat? Naruto grunted before grabbing his clothes, having changed into a pair of shorts and a plain tee before going to sleep. Nah, thought I'd grab an apple and have a big lunch. He pointed to the paper bag he had prepared the night before. Ah, okay, well hurry up, I'm always early to school, and I won't have you changing that because you decided an extra 30 minutes of sleep were worth it. A good ninja is always early. Yeah, and one of the strongest from my future was always 2 hours late. I'll never understand adults. Naruto quickly headed to the shower and relished a quick 10-minute hot shower for once. Man, this might just be worth a lost sleep after all. He stepped out and dried off, looking at himself through a foggy mirror. He looked at his blade. Should I wear this? I mean, until I learn how to actually use it, it'll just be eye candy, maybe make me look cooler. It can't be much different from using kunai. Just really long, heavier kunai. He picked up the blade, slowly drawing it out of its sheath. A little too heavy to throw accurately and definitely not in a reverse grip, and I'll need to keep in mind the length difference, but yeah, a basic kunai swings should do me until I learn an actual style. Having decided that, Naruto clipped on the sword, looking at himself. Completely different from how he said to look already. He stepped out and into the living room, where Iruka could only stare. He was only 11, but his serious eyes and the way he carried himself. Dear Kami, he looks like a veteran. What the hell? He coughed into his fist and placed his bowl down. Well Naruto, you look nice, like an actual ninja. Shall we get going? Naruto nodded and opened the door, feeling for the first time, ready to take on the future. In a small building in a disclosed area. They had become such an integral part of his life, cared so deeply for him. Hiruzen had not bothered with them. But now, he had to make sure. The old man he was not too worried with, he was sincere, he had left that life behind him, all he cared about was his business and his daughter. But his daughter on the other hand he didn't know about. She had been young when her father came to the Leaf, but how much did she know? How much had he told her about his previous life? Surely his village had turned their backs on him after discovering his betrayal, maybe. Hiruzen just didn't know. Hiruzen walked into the room, Ichiraku staring at the wall opposite to him coldly, a small cardboard box in front of him. Hiruzen had no idea what was in it, but Ichiraku had insisted on bringing it with him. Analyses showed it wasn't any sort of explosive. Do you know why you are here? You learned I used to be a spy for Iwa, and you are trying to discern where my loyalties lie. Short and to the point and honest. Oh, that's a rather blunt declaration, Ichiraku-san. You think I've given up that life, so I'm giving you the same courtesy, Hokage-sama, the truth. If you believed otherwise I would be talking to a trained interrogator instead of you. Here, this will give you everything you need to know. He pushed the box towards Hiruzen, who gingerly opened the lid. Inside was a bunch of portfolios and photos of different politics. Hiruzen knew to be in the daimyo's inner circle, and some were high-ranking people on the civilian council. And at the bottom he found an Iwa headband next to a ninja identification card. It read Tukigani Ichiraku rank. Takubetsu Jounin specialty. Alchemy, medicine and poison. The picture depicted a very young Ichiraku wearing the signature Iwa red uniform, as well as their flak jacket. The rest of the papers were a list of missions he had gone on, the last one reading. Long-term B ran infiltration of Konohagakure no Sado. Seeing Hiruzen reading the list, Ichiraku spoke up. My last mission given to me by the Tsuchikage was to infiltrate Konoha and to give him regular reports of high-ranking officials, as well as tell him the opinion of the general public. I think he was going to try and start a smear campaign against you, Lord Hokage, and try and lead a revolt. Though I was never told, so that is just my opinion. And did you follow through with those orders? Yes, for a time, Lord Hokage. I decided the best way to do so was by opening a ramen stand and using my father's old recipes. He was famous among old war veterans back in Iowa when I was growing up. I was to maintain my cover at all cost, then we entered the third war. By then Aem's mother was pregnant and I began questioning things. Iwa called on me to try and sabotage Konoha from within. You know, small things to try and disrupt the chain of command. But Shiasa-chan, she found out, I told her the truth. I don't know, that woman had a way with words and she fully believed that Konoha would win the war. So I ignored my orders. A bridge was blown up thanks to my efforts and the tides of battle began to change. Hiruzen sat back and waited patiently, listening to the old man's story. Ichiraku reached into box and grabbed his old headband, looking at it. After Aem's mother died during birth, I knew if it ever became public that I was a spy for Iwa, Aem would be treated like an outcast. The last message I sent to the Tsuchikage was an injured messenger carrying my resignation. The most contact I've had with Iwa since then has been retired veterans who come to visit Konoha. That was my story. Now I'm just Tuchi Ichiraku, owner of Ichiraku's Ramen, father to a wonderful daughter who has no idea the life I used to lead. That is the truth, Lord Hokage. Hiruzen didn't say anything, he stood up, stretched slightly, and walked out, Ichiraku going back to giving the wall a cold stare. Hiruzen walked into an adjoining room, where a two-sided window gave him a perfect view of the room and its occupant. Ibiki was there, looking over several monitors. Well, Ibiki, was he being truthful? Ibiki looked back to Hiruzen before handing him a clipboard. Yes, Hokage-sama, very truthful. Had a look at the box while you were away. Some of the mission details are over 30 years old. Looks like he never did any serious damage to Konoha, but he may have been the cause of death for several ninja during the Second War. All under the Tsuchikage's orders, because it doesn't look like he harbors any animosity towards us. What do you want to do? Well, by rights, we should have him imprisoned, but he gave up his life for his daughter, who by all rights is a Konoha citizen. And I believe him when he says she's not part of his old life. Keep up on the other spies, especially those who came in after the Kyuubi attack. For now I'll let him go and keep him under surveillance, see if anything changes. He walked in the room and sat down staring at Ichiraku, who stared right back, not even flinching. I should charge you with treason, espionage, and a whole litany of crimes we think you may have committed during the Second War. But I won't. He looked towards Ibiki and made a motion with his hand, a horizontal slash across his throat, signaling to cut the audio and video feed. You have had a profound impact on Naruto's life, been a positive influence on him when he needed it. For now I am going to allow you to go home, continue your business. You'll be under surveillance of course, and if anything changes that makes us suspect you're trying to contact Iwa, we will arrest you. Understood? Ichiraku nodded and grabbed the box, looking into it before sliding it over to Hiruzen. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Please burn this at your earliest convenience. Naruto was unsurprisingly the first one to the classroom, Haruka having gone to some other place to prepare for his first class. Well, this is rather boring, class doesn't start for another 30 minutes and I don't know when anybody else is supposed to be here. Great, well maybe I can catch up on some sleep. Naruto went over to his desk, taking his blade off of his back, as sitting down the way it was positioned is rather awkward. He laid his head down and closed his eye, breathing deeply. The sounds of teachers and other students ambling their way throughout the halls fading. He remembered this feeling, time slowing down, his heartbeat, his rushing blood, his thoughts going 1,000 miles an hour just seemed to stop. Meditation, the coming to a complete balance inside yourself, concentration, focus and patience. This is what Jiraiya had taught him, what the toads had taught him to gather nature chakra. He hadn't had the chance to meditate since coming back, which really wasn't all that bad. But this feeling. With the war going on, he had forgotten what it felt like. It had been too long and just at the precipice of his senses, almost unnoticeable except for those who knew it was there. Nature chakra, Naruto could feel it surrounding the academy. He dare not attempt to take any in, with his piss-poor control, he turned to stone in seconds. No, he was nowhere near strong enough to enter sage mode. Man, I was weak this time around. I mean, how many fights was I in that I relied on Kurama's chakra to win? Without realizing it, Naruto's body followed through with what long years of memories remembered. Sitting cross-legged, his on his knees and his head held high, slightly pointing down. This was the scene one Hinata Hyuga walked in one. She was so used to being the first one to class, she almost gave a startled yelp, only stopping herself by bringing her hands to her mouth. Naruto, he looked so much more mature, so much more peaceful, so much more handsome. Hinata's blush came on full force as her fingers started poking each other. Should I sit next to him? What? No. I can't do that. What if I disturb him? I'm going to sit over there. Hinata ended up sitting in the row besides the one Naruto was in, at the back of class. Though her entrance was less quiet than she had hoped. Naruto just didn't let her know. So that must be Hinata, quiet and shy like always. Though I guess I was too blind to see how far she pushed herself out of her comfort zone to try and improve. It was then Hinata noticed the blade laying wrapped across his lap, which in her eyes only made him look cooler. It was then her ears picked up the sound of two arguing ladies, making their way to the door fast. Naruto also noticed his eyes snapped open, examining the room, and when his eyes laid on Hinata's form, she had her head buried deep in her hands, though he could still feel the blush radiating off of her. So it was that a certain pink-haired banshee and blonde-haired wonder clashed at the doorway at the exact same time, both proclaiming eternal love for a certain duck-haired boy. Oh, now I remember why all the other reasons why I hated school. The Uchiha fan club, who have a particular hate boner for me because Sasuke's hate boner for me means he gives me more attention than them. Behind the two girls was the loud boasting form of Kiba talking to the ever-passive Shino, as well as Choji, Shikamaru, and the rest of the civilian portion of the class. Most of them took their seats, but it was Sasuke who noticed Naruto first. What's with the new clothes dope? Finally pick up a sense of fashion and ditch the orange. That got the class's attention as all eyes went from Sasuke to Naruto, who stared back with a blank face. He raised his arms and aid. Yes, Sasuke, I decided that I was gonna take this serious. Which meant actually dressing for the job I want. Problem? No, just an observation. Though you'll never amount to anything compared to me. Like a silent cue, all of Sasuke's fangirls started freaking out about how cool he was and how lame Naruto would always be. Right, Sasuke's also a major, arrogant, pompous prick. And I'm going to have to deal with this for at least a year. At least until he tries to go to Orochimaru. I think you're PRPR pretty cool and Naruto-kun. It was said so quietly, almost inaudible, but Naruto's refined hearing picked it up. His eyes cut to Hinata, who was still blushing, but he knew her voice. Keep talking tough, Sasuke, I actually trained during the break. You'll see how much stronger I've gotten during the afternoon sparring session. The whole class broke out into us and ahs at Naruto's declaration, which in the classroom was basically like declaring war. Everyone knew that Naruto and Sasuke had somewhat of a rivalry going on, though no one knew why Sasuke was so fixated on Naruto. Alright kids, return to your seats. Iruka walked in, with a new instructor behind him, thought Naruto knew him as Mizuki, he was a stranger to the rest of the class. He entered the class and gave it a once-over, stopping on Naruto and scowling for a brief second. Naruto caught his look and simply winked at Mizuki. This is Mizuki class, he will be my assistant and your Taijutsu teacher for your final year here. Now I know that you all had fun over your break, but I must see who remembers what from last year, Mizuki if you will. Mizuki handed out pieces of paper to the students, a small test the class realized with many complaints and groans. And as he passed, Naruto saw the sly smirk Mizuki tried to hide as he handed Naruto the test. Naruto immediately saw the reason. The questions on his test were not anything a Chunin could answer, let alone an academy student. Naruto could answer these questions no problem, but that's because he literally had future knowledge. Without saying anything, Naruto picked up his pencil and answered the questions in record time. Mizuki scowling as he saw the blank expression the demon brat was wearing. Don't tell me the fox knows the answers. He scowled deeply, glaring at the blonde. Is everything alright, Mizuki-san? Mizuki turned towards Iruka and smiled. Yeah, everything's fine, Iruka. Say, how about you start prepping for today's lesson while I grade the class's answers, huh? Split the work. Iruka nodded his head. Oh, thanks, Mizuki-san, that would be a big help. Hey, what are assistants for, right? Iruka turned around and started writing on the board behind him. Hey Iruka-sensei, I have a question. Without turning around, Iruka replied, now Naruto, any questions will be answered after the allotted time is up, okay? But Iruka-sensei, when did we go over Sajuro Akimichi's revolt during the Second Ninja War and how Azuma Michiru thwarted his plan with the Senman? At the Iruka stopped, in fact most of the class stopped, he turned around confused, what are you talking about, Naruto? You were supposed to learn that during this year's course. Mizuki paled ever so slightly, since when did the Kyuubi brat complain about his test? He had never done that before according to Iruka's past assistants. I'll check it out, Iruka, continue please. Iruka narrowed his eyes before stepping back. And the other instructors are going to try like hell to make sure that doesn't happen. Naruto's words from yesterday came back to Iruka and his eyes darted over to Mizuki for half a second. That's alright Mizuki, I'm finished anyways. Naruto, come here, let me see your test. Naruto quickly stood up, making sure his blade stayed hidden out of sight, he was saving that as a special surprise for sparring. He quickly made his way to the front. Handing his paper to Iruka, Naruto just kinda stood there awkwardly. Mizuki-san, it seems you handed Naruto the graduation test instead of the one he was meant to have. How strange, how did it end up there? Mizuki laughed nervously, must have been an accident, I am sorry Iruka-san, Naruto-san, it won't happen again. Inwardly Mizuki was cursing the both of them. Damn him, making me apologize to the demon of all things. Iruka laughed, it's fine as long as it doesn't happen anymore. Take your seat Naruto, and bring this with you. Handing Naruto the actual test he was meant to take, Iruka looked towards Mizuki with a forced smile. You know Mizuki-san, I don't want to doubt your ability as a teacher, but I think I will grade the test while you're out making sure what the kids remember from their previous Taijutsu instructor last year. Izuki nodded his head slowly, a pained look on his face. Yes, Iruka-san. 30 more minutes passed before Iruka went around and collected the paper. Alright class, there's going to be a small break while I collect my notes. Take 10 minutes to stretch and whatnot while I finish, okay? Naruto looked over to Hinata and said PSST Hinata. Hinata meeked before looking over to the blonde of her dreams. He's actually talking to me. What do I do? Okay Hinata, calm yourself. You can do this, don't sound stupid. Why yes Naruto-kun. Damn, I stutter. I'm going to take a quick nap. Do you think you could wake me up when Iruka starts class again? Oh, of course Naruto-kun. You can count on me. Naruto smiled brightly, which sent Hinata's blush over the edge. Thanks Hinata. You're a good friend. He then laid his head down, and to the rest of the world, within seconds was asleep. Hinata's fingers started waging war against each other. He called me his friend, yes. Naruto was going deep within himself, towards his mind. He needed to talk to Kurama. He needed advice. He needed to get away from this world and go within. Much like earlier, the sounds of talking students started to fade, time seemed to distort and bend, and Naruto found himself in a place between the two. He opened his eyes and found he wasn't in the sewer of his mind, nor was he in the academy classroom. He found himself staring at a desolate plain, and in front of him, it looked like 3 wars had been waged at once. All around him lay thousands of dead bodies. What? This is my own personal world. The place people go when they call upon my power and sell their souls to gain my aid. Naruto spun around to come face to face with the Shinigami, in his true form, the purple Oni with the white robes and horns. Shinigami-sama, to what do I owe the pleasure? I assume my sister has already found a way to warn you of the 2 demons I sent here. Yes, she did. Why did you do that? At first I thought to give you a challenge, but that is not the real reason. Let me explain. Time is a series of cause and effects. With you back and changing things, there will be new causes and therefore new effects. Still with me? Surprisingly, Naruto nodded. He may not be the smartest person, but he certainly wasn't as stupid as most people thought he was. Time itself is a fickle mistress. To put it another way, imagine time is like a river, it flows in one direction. What you are trying to do is divert that river, change its course, and time won't allow that. It will try as hard as it can to maintain its course. So what you're saying is if I'm not strong enough, then the same things are going to happen again despite how hard I try. You catch on fast, boy, good. Yes, for instance, say you wanted to save Asuma Saratobi who was killed while you were away. He fought the undead duo Kakuzu and Haiden. So you take away Kakuzu and Haiden and he dies fighting some bandits trying to save his students. He still dies. What I'm trying to say is that if you aren't strong enough to beat these demons when they find you, then you will be nowhere near strong enough to change the course of time. Naruto looked at the ground deep in thought. If that's the case, then why bother if I can't save everyone? I'd need to be watching all of them at once. That's the point, boy. You're trying to be a guardian to a people who A. Don't want your protection or B. Don't think they need it. You won't be able to save everybody because in war there are always casualties. There will always be death, me. Then might I ask a favor, Shinigami-sama? What would you ask of me, boy? When I was conquered Kurama's chakra and pulled him out of his hate, my mother helped me. She showed me the Uzumaki Geki Genkai. Pure chakra manipulation. I want you to unlock it within me. Oh, you realized it was not chains but chakra manipulation. Fine, he snapped his fingers. Done, boy. Now I must be going things to do. Wait, how do I use it? I will let you figure that one out, boy. But here's a hint. You're Rasengan. Though I will tell you that it is not just chakra manipulation, it is more like iron manipulation. Have fun. Before Naruto could as what he meant, he felt a tug at the back of his mind and then his eyes opened, the sounds of the classroom came back to him. Hinata was sitting right beside him shaking his shoulders lightly. Wake up and Naruto-kun, Iruka is starting class again. Naruto looked forward as Iruka entered the classroom, then he stared back at Hinata and smiled. Thanks again, Hinata. I owe you. To make things even more interesting, Hinata had actually made the decision to remain seated for the duration of the class, silently taking notes and taking sneak peeks at Naruto whenever she was sure he was too busy taking notes, which was a big surprise since when did he take notes? Naruto, for his part, having been quite a bit more mature this time around, decided to wait patiently for this portion of class to end. From 8 to 10 was Iruka's portion, where the class learned all manner of history, math, science, important figures throughout history and current village leaders. From 10 to 10:30 was a lunch break, and then from 10:30 to 11:30 was ninja hour, where they would go over the basics of chakra, chakra control, taijutsu and low-level ninjutsu, and then from 11:30 to 12 was sparring. Plain, boring and uneventfully dull were the words Naruto would use to describe school life. That's what it had been when he went, and he honestly didn't know why he expected the second time through to be any different. Ugh, this was so boring. Then the clock struck 10 and Naruto's head perked up slightly. Iruka was just finishing up a lecture about notable coups that had taken place throughout the history of the Leaf. Yeah, and none here know that the Leaf's biggest coup was stopped by its worst villain. Alright class, go ahead and eat your lunch and be at the training grounds before lunch ends, got that? He gave a pointed stare at Kiba and Naruto. See you in 30 minutes, Mizuki, if you would follow me, I need to have a word in private with you. The two adults left and the class began to filter out to their preferred eating spots. Naruto for his part always ate in the classroom, which was mostly deserted within a few minutes. This time though he would do things differently. As she was getting up, Naruto looked towards Hinata. Hey Hinata, would you like to eat lunch with me? The Hinata, the whole world seemed to stop and just disappear. Here she was, having finally managed to sit next to th guy of her dreams, and now he was asking her to eat lunch with her. He wants me to eat with him. Thump, and she's out like a light. Wow, was this really how much I could influence her back then? His mind went to her Chunin fight with Niji. I guess I have had a profound impact on her. And now I have to wake her up, and what to do? Oh, I have an idea. By now the entire classroom was empty save for one blonde and a blue-haired girl. Naruto went forward a couple of rows and said in a voice several pitches different than his own, did you hear? Naruto asked Sakura out on a date and she said yes. They're on their way to Ichiraku's right now. Like a switch, Hinata was sitting up, a fire in her eyes, redrum. She was looking around wildly before Naruto walked up holding his lunch bag. Hey Hinata, you're awake, you gave me quite the fright, I was just about to go get one of the teachers. Are you feeling alright? Naruto had crouched down to get a closer look at Hinata, whose face got redder the closer he got. She quickly backpedaled away, trying to get her heart to slow down and her face under control. And then no, it's okay and Naruto K-kun. I'm fine really. Naruto smirked, okay then Hinata, if you can tell me something about yourself without stuttering, I'll believe you. Okami, he probably thinks the stutter is annoying. But it's not like I can help it. Hinata took a deep breath and steeled herself. I have a younger sister named Hanabi. I did it. Naruto nodded his head. Nice, I don't have any family. What's it like to be an older sibling? Hinata smiled and looked at the ground. Well, fulfilling, I guess. Hanabi is so young and doesn't understand the world, but because my clan thinks I'm weak, they've been grooming her to be clan heir for a while. But she's so young and impressionable. I don't often get to act like the older sister I ought to be. She's so mature. Not one stutter, Naruto was impressed. It appears when she's talking about something she believes in deeply she's more confident. Let's keep this going. What do you mean your clan thinks you're weak? Don't they know you're like the top female of your class? It was true, even though Sakura had the slight edge when it came to book smarts, she didn't hold a candle to Hinata on the battlefield. I'm a very meek person, I guess. I don't have a lot of self-confidence. Every time I feel like the spotlight's on me I freeze up. Hinata shook her head, that's why my clan thinks I'm weak. Because I don't act all hot-headed like Sasuke does. Naruto shook his head, it's a damn shame is what that is. The Hyuga clan have the Byakugan said to let them see everything. Yet they can't even see how awesome you are, Hinata. Hinata's blush came back full force, even redder at the compliment. Thank you and Naruto K-kun. And with her blush comes her stutter. Though I have to admit it's kind of cute. Ring. Oh, looks like we need to get to the sparring grounds, but let's do this again, huh? Tell me Mizuki, what do you think of Naruto Uzumaki? What about him? Mizuki was barely able to hold in his disgust. Of course he hated that thing, his whole purpose of joining the academy had been to make sure it never passed. The fact some greedy rich guy was willing to pay him for it only added money to an already great deal. Most in the village see Naruto as the fox, and I wanted to know where you stood. Because in my classroom his isn't a boy, he isn't some great fox demon, he is my student, and as a teacher, it is my duty to make sure he reaches his full potential. I see him for the young child he is. But what about you? Mizuki laughed good-heartedly, look Iruka, if this is about his test, I'm sorry, it was an honest accident. It won't happen again. Iruka's eyes narrowed, you see I don't believe that, I don't believe you Mizuki. So I will be keeping an eye on you, your job is to teach my class, all of my class, how to fight and use basic weapons. If I feel or see for one moment that there is prejudice going on for any reason I will have you fired and get myself a new teacher. Understood? Mizuki smiled with all of the confidence and bravado of a fool. Yes Iruka, please do tell me where you will find a teacher that will even call Naruto by his name, let alone even think about teaching him. I came here with a job, and I intend to do it regardless of whose class I am teaching. Iruka took a step back, took a deep breath, and said if I have to fire you, then I will do the teaching myself if it comes down to it. Do not forget Mizuki, that at the end of the day I can make that decision, and if needs be I will make that decision. He turned around and headed towards the doorway, now I finished all of those tests and have some free time, I think I would like to watch you teach. I'm sure that won't be a problem now, will it? He stepped out and Mizuki scowled deeply, rage clear on his face. Who the hell does that man think he is to threaten the likes of me? I have the entire civilian council backing me on this mission. And he will regret that when they come knocking down his door. I swear I will be the end of him someday. Mizuki took a deep breath to try and calm his frazzled nerves. Calm yourself, Mizuki, you've got an entire class of children and one thing to teach. I'll have my chance to sabotage it later. From behind him, Mizuki never saw the shadow flicker ever so slightly, nor did he see the figure who had been watching the entire conversation leave. Alright everyone, you know how this works. Partner off with someone, contact sparring only, no ninjutsu, no jinjutsu, and Naruto drowned Mizuki out, trying to center himself. He had heard this hundreds of times. He now had his sword on full display strapped to his waist instead of his back, which was what most of the students of his class had been staring at. When Mizuki finished, it was Kiba who pointed it out first. Okay Naruto, what the hell is up with you? First you ditch your orange jumpsuit, which was basically your staple, and now you have a fucking sword. Naruto grinned and pulled it out an inch so that light glinted off the metal. Well Kiba, like I said, I'm taking becoming a ninja serious, which means I gotta have my own unique thing. You guys have your clan techniques, and Sasuke has an entire clan library to study from. But no one here uses a blade longer than a kunai. So I thought I might do that. I haven't learned any more than basics with this thing, but it'll do in a spar. Right sense. Naruto looked over to Iruka, who held out his hand. Let me see it, Naruto. They had agreed to make it look like it had been Naruto's idea instead of Iruka's. He gently placed the sheathed blade in his open palm. In one quick motion, Iruka had the blade out, examining its sharpness. He then resheathed the blade and pulled out some string, tying a basic X over the sheath and handguard. I will allow it, Naruto. If your opponent is allowed to use blunted kunai, then I don't see the harm in a wooden sword. No drawing your weapon or you'll be disqualified though, understood? Hi Iruka sensei. This was the time everyone had been waiting for, the first fight. Everyone knew what would happen. Iruka would ask for some volunteers, to which Sasuke would challenge Naruto. The blonde idiot would accept like he had always done, then he'd get his ass kicked, like always. This was a spectacle that never failed to lift the class's spirit after arduous hours in the classroom. Alright class, first we will do 1 versus 1 spars, are there any volunteers? Sasuke jumped into the ring and pointed at Naruto. I challenge the dope. I want to prove that his words were just empty talk earlier. Naruto smirked and stepped into the ring. Fine Sasuke, I accept your challenge, and when I kick your ass from here to Suna and back I don't want to hear you complaining. Iruka stepped in between the two. Alright you two, that's enough. I want a clean fight, no ninjutsu allowed, no low blows, no cheap shots. First to exit the ring or give up, loses, and when I call the match that means stop, understood? Both boys glared at each other and in unison said hi Iruka sensei. Iruka looked to Naruto, who had his feet spread shoulder length apart, wielding his blade perpendicular to his body. Sasuke was in the common Uchiha fighting stance. He raised his left hand, chopped the air, jumping back, shouting Hajime. Much like the class was expecting, Naruto charged Sasuke, raising his blade and swinging down when he was in range. Sasuke had brought out a kunai during Naruto charge and blocked the sheath and grinned. Just because you have a new weapon doesn't mean it makes up for the difference in our power, dope. Sasuke quickly ran his kunai down the length of the sheath before raising his hand up fast. A basic disarming technique, but it worked. Naruto's weapon flew from his hands and into the crowd of students. Outside the ring. Naruto wouldn't be able to use it. Ah well, it wasn't to last anyways. Naruto did a quick backflip away from Sasuke. Well, that was a neat trick, Sasuke. Disarming a beginner from his weapon, such skill. Are you going to keep talking like a dog with his tail between his legs, or are you going to fight, dope? Oh geez, that's exactly what I was thinking, Sasuke, but then I realized I really can't hit a lady, it'd be dishonorable. That got the class snickering, and an annoyed mark appeared over Sasuke's eyes. Say that to my face, idiot. You always tell me to come to you, but I don't see you in any rush to get near me, Sasuke, could it be? Are you afraid of me? Sasuke growled, like hell I'd ever be scared of a loser like you. He charged straight at Naruto, which Naruto grinned. Temper, Sasuke, such things make you predictable. Within a second Sasuke was in front of Naruto, swinging wildly, left jab, feint right, kick to the abdomen. It was then Naruto realized something. Whenever he had fought Sasuke in the academy he could never read him, which made fighting him impossible. But now that he had the mind of a mature 17-year-old ninja that had literally fought gods, Sasuke was almost as slow as a turtle. Naruto was ducking and weaving and rolling out of the way, much to the class surprise. The only strategy Naruto had ever employed was to take the hits and try and outlast his opponents. Wear down their stamina and take them down when they were too tired to defend themselves. But this? Actively trying not to get hit. Showing some skill. He must have done some real intensive training over the summer. This was said by Shikamaru as Naruto caught one of Sasuke's fists and returned fire with a sweeping kick. So Sasuke, believe me now when I say that I am nothing like I was last year. I will admit you are slightly better, but that's all, you're still a clanless loser. No Sasuke, I have a surname, I'm an Uzumaki. Probably the last Uzumaki alive, just as you are the last Uchiha. That's different Naruto. Sasuke threw a couple of practice shuriken in an attempt to catch Naruto off guard, to get close. It didn't work, Naruto easily sidestepped the kunai and ducked under Sasuke's flurry of blows, using a strong palm thrust to push him back. You're right, it took villages combining their armies to kill my clan, whereas it took one man to do in yours. The entire class went deathly quiet as Naruto said that, even the bugs stopped buzzing. You could have cut the tension and silence with a rusty butter knife. How dare you? Sasuke had given any form or grace, rage had completely taken over his form, he charged Naruto, fully intent to beat the blonde idiot to death. He thought he knew Sasuke's pain. He didn't know what it was like to have everything, then it be taken away in one moment. He didn't know what it was like to sit up late at night thinking about nothing but pure murder of your older sibling. He would teach the blonde the meaning of suffering for that Rimaka rules and laws be damned. He was Sasuke Uchiha, the last loyal Uchiha of the Leaf Village, the council bowed down and kiss his ass if it meant keeping the Sharingan in the village. They wouldn't care about some poor orphan. Those were Sasuke's thoughts as he pulled out a real kunai, not the blunted pieces of shit they were supposed to have. No, this one was pointed and sharp and kill-worthy. Naruto learned this the hard way as he went to block one strike and ended up with a nasty-looking cut on his right forearm. Hiruka decided at that point he would step in, but then he saw the look in Naruto's eyes. Something in them made him pause for just a split second. He didn't see fear in them, hell he didn't even see them register the pain of the cut. He saw sadness as Naruto gazed upon Sasuke's huffing form. Then behind that he saw the determination. Naruto held out one hand, the hand holding his kunai and dropped it and pointed to Sasuke. I bet you feel so big and bad holding that, cutting me and making me bleed, but look at this, he held up the hand that had been cut, as it had seemingly closed up all on its own. I'm an Uzumaki, I have a regeneration factor. If you think you can do that little trick Sasuke then by all means come on. That was all the invitation Sasuke needed as he charged Naruto. What he was not expecting was for Naruto to take a quick step forward and throw him over his shoulder. Nor did Sasuke see Naruto pull out the kunai he had hidden up his sleeve, but boy did he see it pointed at his throat. I think that's my win, right, Iruka-sensei. The whole class was dumbfounded, not only had Naruto positioned himself at the edge of the ring and therefore disqualified Sasuke by flipping him outside of the ring, he had made a conclusive victory with his kunai. Nothing like that had happened before. Nothing like that had come close to happening when Naruto and Sasuke sparred in the past. Iruka quickly stepped in between the two boys. Okay, that's the match. Winner Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto started walking away, towards the other end of the ring where he saw Hinata had picked up his sword. He smiled at her, not seeing Sasuke get up, nor did he see the rage in Sasuke's eye. And he certainly didn't see Sasuke making hand signs. But he felt the heat as Sasuke said fire style. Great fireball jutsu. As a giant ball of fire went flying towards Naruto. He turned around and his first thought had been to dodge, but he had students behind him and they wouldn't be able to get out of the way in time. Shit. Had been his only thought as he brought his arms to form an X over his chest, in a last-ditch effort willing his chakra to protect him. The last thing he remembered was seeing a blue form take shape in front of him before it and the fireball clashed and it sent Naruto rocketing backwards. Into a tree. And then darkness consumed him. Naruto's was in the familiar environment of his mind. The last thing he remembered seeing, a great big ball of fire headed straight towards his face. That was uncomfortably similar to Kajaya. Ugh, he looked around in the maze that made up his mind. Why do I always end up here though? Why can't my mind have the decency to drop me off in front of the fox? He sighed and looked at his reflection in the water. Well, I'm gonna be here for a while, might as well see what she's up to. He started the long trek through his mind, walking through deep dark wet halls. Man, I really need to find a way to fix it's so depressing. I mean, I know my childhood was shit, but damn. You'd think that it would fix itself over time. It wasn't long before he found the central chamber, the fox resting on her front paws. Oi Kuramaya. The giant fox opened eye, staring down at the small human. Oh hello kid. What brings you here? Fraught Sasuke, beat him for once, he threw a tantrum and launched a fireball at me, and I think it knocked me into something hard. Woke up here, have you really been asleep this entire time? What else am I to do while I'm locked behind this damned cage? Speaking of that, is there any way I can change that? I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the sour look my mind came up with, a real work of art there, but I think it could do with some renovations. What do you think? It's your mind, Kid. Kurama shrugged her shoulders. I'm no Yamanaka, but I think if it's going to change it needs to be done by you. Naruto stared dumbfounded. Wait, are you being serious? How would I do that? Again, your mind. Just think really hard, that's the best I could come up with. It can't be that easy, can it? He stared at the murky ground hard, concentrating as hard as he could. Tried to mentally imagine the scene around him changing. To Kurama's amazement, the sower was jazzing, shifting, colors brightening and darkening. The bars phasing out of existence, then coming back. Naruto's eyes were clenched tight and the sower started shaking, like an earthquake was happening. He's not just changing his mindscape, he's changing how his mind views things. From Naruto a bright light started growing, dim at first, but soon expanded to look like a small sun, blinding Kurama, and so hot. Kurama was naturally attuned to fire, but this was different, like something was trying to burn her soul. When the light finally went away Kurama realized she was the size of a large bear, but that wasn't the biggest surprise, the sower was gone. Naruto opened his eyes and grinned, "Ha. I did it. What do you think, Kurama?" Kurama was too stunned to respond, the sower had gave way to a beautiful traditional rock garden, cherry blossom trees spread throughout, a small wind leaving a constant trail of falling petals. The seal that held back Kurama's power was found at the center, the Shikifujin found on a small stone monument. Kurama herself was the size of a large bear, still towering over Naruto, but nowhere near her normal Goliath height. Naruto managed this on his own. "This is more beautiful than anything else I have ever seen." "Well, Kurama. I remember seeing one of these my visit to the land of the samurai. Thought it was awesome and always wanted one of my own. What do you think?" "I think it's beautiful, Naruto. Where did you even think to come up with this?" "Again, the land of iron. On the way to the cage summit, we stopped by a small town. I saw this rock garden outside of some sushi bar, I thought it was so beautiful." Naruto walked over to the monument. This was a shrine dedicated to the owner's late husband. "It reminded me of the one I built for Jiraiya, kind of stuck. It's one of my favorite places I've visited outside of Konoha." "Well kid, I must tell you how impressive it is and all, but did you really have to change my size as well? I like being a giant fox, not an abnormally big one." Naruto shrugged his shoulders. "I mean, does it really matter? I'm the only person who sees you. No point in looking scary if there's no one to scare." Kurama gave Naruto a blank look before her eyes had fires in them, "But it wasn't your choice to make you idiot." Naruto grinned and stared back at Kurama. "My mind, my rules, Kurama. And besides that, am I wrong?" "Of course not kid, but I liked being super big. Looking down on you. Hey, you still can do that. This is different." "How can this be any different than the time you changed your own size and said, and I quote, 'This isn't so bad'? Because I willingly made that decision and had the power to control when I returned to normal size." "Okay maybe, but no buts, Naruto. Now change me back." Naruto turned around, his head held high. "No." "What? What do you mean no?" "I mean no, I like the thought that one day I'll be big enough to look you in the eye. So I'm not changing you back and that's that." "And why must you be so stubborn?" "Because I can be. Now do you know how long I'll be stuck here?" "How the hell should I know? Just because I fix what's broken doesn't mean I know how long it'll take to fix." "Well, what the hell am I supposed to do in here in the meantime? This cannot stand, Hokage-sama. Naruto is in the hospital with borderline second-degree burns. It's a miracle that just didn't straight up kill him. What's to be done with Sasuke?" For the second time in just as many days Iruka was in the Hokage's office furious. One of his students had basically tried to murder another one. "We have laws for a reason, why aren't they being enforced?" For the trillionth time that week, here's inside. He stood up and walked over to the window, lighting his pipe. "I am the third Hokage, my actions affect the numerous lives inside these walls. Do you want the honest answer, Iruka? The civilian council won't lay a hand on their precious Uchiha. But he's a student at the academy, a ninja in training. He falls under your authority, not theirs." "You are right, but if I make a move against him, it will incite rage into the council, not from the major clans but the smaller ones. That is not something I have the ability to face just yet. I am playing a dangerous game of politics against the council and don't have the support just yet to put my plans in motion." "Council be damned, Hokage-sama. He's my student and he hurt another one. There will be discipline in my classroom." "I understand your outrage, Iruka, but please try and calm down. I will talk to the young Uchiha, see if there is any remorse for his actions. If I find none, then he is yours to do with you please, okay?" Iruka bowed. "Yes, Hokage-sama. There is one other matter I would like to bring to your attention." "Speak." "I have reason to believe Mizuki plans to try and sabotage Naruto at every given opportunity." "Oh, that is interesting. Didn't you personally brief every candidate?" "I didn't think anyone of such mindset would get past you." "I am ashamed to admit it, Hokage-sama, but he tricked me, I think." "Do you have any substantial proof?" "Well no, but..." Hiruzen stopped Iruka by turning around and looking him in the eye. "Look, Iruka-san, I trust your judgment. If you think Mizuki views Naruto as the fox, then by all means keep an eye on him. But until you bring hard evidence there is nothing I can do, and I hardly doubt that the school board will do anything about it." A hard look entered Iruka's eyes. "Yes, Hokage-sama." Just then Hiruzen's secretary knocked on the door. Hokage-sama, Councilman Shimura is here to see you. He said you'd be expecting him." Hiruzen nodded. "Well, Iruka, continue to keep an eye on Naruto and the school. If you find any solid proof of sabotage or bias, come to me, understood?" Iruka bowed deep. "Yes, Hokage-sama." And he left just as Danzo entered the office and Anbu trailing behind him. Though the strangest thing to Iruka was her mask. Since when did Leaf Anbu wear blank masks? Hello, Hiruzen. Danzo, how good of you to make an unscheduled appointment. To what do I owe the pleasure of you and your friend's company? Danzo nodded over to the Anbu who immediately kneeled. This is one of my route captains, Sora Shirado. As a sign of goodwill I put her in your hands to be part of the Hokage's guard. I honestly believe that this truce of ours is doomed to fail, Hiruzen. We view things too differently, but this gesture of faithful should keep the peace for a while. As well as this. Danzo placed a sealed document on Hiruzen's table, labeled Protocol Anathema in bright red. Opening the folder, Hiruzen was surprised to see a list of names, followed by rank and all who were on active missions and where those missions were. A full data book on some of Danzo's operations. He wasn't foolish enough to believe Danzo would honestly hand him that much ammunition. I must say, Danzo, I wasn't expecting to see this much information on your operations. Though I am pleasantly surprised by it. You thought I would back down on my end of the agreement. Hiruzen shook his head and pulled out a flask of sake and 2 saucers. No, Danzo, I expected a little bit, just not this much. He poured some sake into the saucers and passed one over to where Danzo was sitting. He raised his up and said to yesterday's enemies and today's friends. Danzo lifted his up and said agreed. Iruka left the Hokage's office and was surprised to see Mizuki was there waiting for him. Hey Iruka-san, judging by your reaction, thing didn't go so well with the Hokage. Iruka shook his head. No, there's nothing he could do without sparking outrage in the council. Mizuki scowled. That's a damn shame, that's what it is. It's pitiful that Uchiha-san can put another student in the hospital and get off scot-free. I guarantee you if it had been anyone else other than Naruto-san things would be different. Iruka was honestly surprised to hear Mizuki say that, had he been wrong after all. Well, I wasn't expecting you to care so much, Mizuki-san. Well, can you blame me? If Naruto hadn't taken the attack head on, who knows how many students would be in the hospital room right now. And then we'd have half the village split over what to do about Sasuke. I do consider myself a teacher first. Besides, people like Sasuke who think that the world owes them something always piss me off. In truth, what really bothered Mizuki was the fact that Demon willingly made the decision to take the hit. Demons didn't do that, did they? I must admit Sasuke's ego has put him in dire situations with his classmates before. Who was he trying to kid? Unless Sasuke was in charge of whatever team he was put in, then his ability to work with and as a team was near non-existent. Iruka had tried to help the boy where he could, but had ultimately been unable to reach the boy. The most emotion he had ever shown was with his rivalry with Naruto, and not even the Yamanaka were insane enough to try and understand what that was. Mizuki shook his head. He'll never make a good ninja if he can't work with the other students. So Iruka-san, what do you suggest? Iruka grabbed his chin. The only way I can think of that to happen is for Sasuke to get a much needed reality check. He needs to see he's just a kid and not some hotshot savant. Well, Iruka-san, I think we should grab a bite to eat. I know this great sushi bar on the south side of the village. They have the best fish from here to Kiri. Iruka narrowed his eyes. He hadn't been expecting the show of camaraderie from Mizuki. But this would be an opportunity for him to try and understand his assistant a little better. Well, I guess I can spare some time, though I can't stay long. I need to prepare the class's history portion for tomorrow. I'm having trouble deciding whether or not they should go over. From there to the south side of town, the two teachers talked about possible lectures or improvements to the training, and soon enough Iruka seemed to forego mistrust to likable banter. Then the conversation turned towards a certain blonde in the class. I really don't think starting with that coup is a good way to start the one-time alliance Iwa and Konoha took against Suna. Mizuki looked towards Iruka aghast. What are you talking about? It's the perfect way to do it. It's that coup that would lead to the peace we have today being possible in the first place. Plus it was all the mistrust from that mission that would lead to Iwa and Konoha being enemies in the last war. Iruka grabbed his chin and thought, you may be right, Mizuki, but remembered even before then, one village was accusing the other for espionage, assassination. There was mistrust and hate all throughout that little battle. The alliance lasted for a week before our forces were fighting together. It took Hokage-sama and Tsuchikage-sama working together to stop it from turning into a three-way war. Hell, even with the 2 Kage it only lasted for another week. Mizuki put high hand up. I know, that's when we made peace with Suna to make Iwa back off and prevent another war. Though that backfired horrible. You really know you're tough, Mizuki. Mizuki grinned. Well, I didn't become a teacher for the pay, you know. Besides, you remember our academy days. Even though I was technically the top academic student in the class, I was always right behind you. You were just too worried about the next stupid stunt you would pull. Iruka sighed and leaned back in his seat. Yeah, I guess. I see a lot of my younger self in Naruto. Mizuki leaned in and whispered, so you really don't see him as the fox? Without a second thought Iruka shook his head. Of course not. If he was the fox, I believe he would try and be discreet about himself. Instead you have a loud-mouthed braggart who pulls pranks because it's the only way he can get people to even acknowledge his existence. Why? I already asked you. Were you lying? Mizuki looked away. Well, I'll admit it, yeah, I was. I saw the fox, and I still do. Mizuki trailed off, and Haruka looked at him warily. I feel a but is coming, Mizuki-san. Yeah, but what he did today. He took Sasuke's attack, but demons would have jumped out of the right. I don't know what to think, you know. You hear something about someone for so long and that's what you believe. Well, Mizuki, let me tell you a story that happened over summer. Up until last year's term, I was indifferent about Naruto. I believed he was the fox too, but during the summer before last year I was in a small town near the border, Chiaki town. Asunanin had gone rouge and was holding hostages, an unnamed ninja, and I had to work together to save everyone. Turns out we had many of the same interests. Okay, and how does this have to do with Nort? Let me finish. As it turns out, that man was a former Iowa veteran. I learned not to listen to others, and I told him almost the same thing you told me when I learned that. Let me tell you what he told me. Step away from other people and their opinions and form your own. Talk to Naruto and make your own thoughts of him. I don't know, Iruka. Even you must some things against him. Iruka smiled. My only problem with Naruto is the same one I have with my entire class, one you'll soon have if you're a true teacher, and one every teacher has. He doesn't strive to reach his full potential. He wants to get strong, but because he believes there's no one he can go to get that help, he sticks with a screwed-up regimen. Really, that's it? He shrugged his shoulders. Other than that, Naruto's just a kid who thinks he's alone in this world. Most of his current faults he will grow out of with time and maturity. Iruka downed the last bit of his drink and stood up. Look, Mizuki, I won't fault you for how you thought of Naruto, but spend some time thinking about it, okay? If you feel like you can't be an unbiased teacher tomorrow, don't come in. But that he walked out, leaving Mizuki to his own thoughts. So Danzo, before you leave, let's you and I discuss business. What would you have, Hiruzen? I'm a busy man, though I may not look it. I read here you have a few assets in Iowa, is that correct? I have 3, 1 jounin, 1 construction worker and 1 medic nin. Why? I assume you are already aware of the ramen shop owner, Ichiraku. I learned of him a long time ago and identified him as a non-threat. The man hasn't been a ninja in some time, let alone use chakra. He's retired. Did you validate the claims of him being a spy? Of course, what do you take me for, a fool? Never, my friend, I want your people to dig into whatever they can find, see if he's truly inactive as a spy or not. I was made aware that you'd already interrogated him, Hiruzen. Did you not believe him? No, but you should know as well as I that the only true retirement for spies is death. Very few actually manage to cut ties and quit. I want to know if Iowa still has a way to contact and give him orders. Work under the assumption that he's still a spy, and I want one of your ninja to become a regular at his store. Keep an eye on him. Danzo got up, dusting himself off, the half-empty bottle of Seik all but forgotten at the moment. Before I leave, may I ask why my ninja, Hiruzen? Hiruzen gave a very political smile. You know why, Danzo? I can disavow the actions made by root ninja who shouldn't be operating in the first place, but also you like to keep your ninja out of sight, only you really know who's part of the program. Ichiraku's ramen has become a favorite of sorts for my ninja. Too much a chance he'll notice someone watching him directly. He already knows I have a ninja watching the place. I don't think he'll expect this though. Danzo nodded, saying as he reached the door, understandable, Hiruzen, I would do the same thing actually. Which is why I'm surprised to be hearing you say it. You'll be getting the same reports I do. He opened the door and headed out, leaving behind his Nina who had been bowed the entire time. Brai Shirado-san, owl. An owl mask Anbu flickered into position. Yes, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen looked to Owl and smiled. Please integrate Mrs. Shirado into my personal guard and have Coyote go home on paid leave for the time. Yes, Hokage-sama, but if I may, I don't like this. I understand, Owl, but trust me. Teach her all the things she'll need to know and get her a proper Anbu mask. I think Sparrow will do. That will be your Calson from now on, understood? She nodded. Hi, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen nodded to Owl. Take her to get properly outfitted and have her go a psyche evaluation. No hard feelings, I hope, but I need to make sure I have your loyalties when on a mission. I don't want Danzo's programming to overwrite my commands. Shirado got up from her bow. Hi, Hokage-sama. Okay, Blue Blood, follow me. As they left, Hiruzen turned his chair around to stare at the faces of the past Hokage. Am I doing the right thing, Tabamara-sama? You would never approve, but it's for the interest of the leaf that I do everything possible while I sit in this chair. The next Hokage may not have the same strength as me. He stared hard, hoping that those inanimate objects would somehow give a sign to his prayers. All he got was a small gust of wind that suspiciously lifted the end of the force picture, slightly revealing the safe Hiruzen had hidden behind it. What, no? He's not ready to face your enemies just yet, Minato-san. Though he does deserve to know the full truth, but not yet. When's ready and strong enough, I will personally show him to your estate. He let out a long breath and started taking a puff off of the pipe. Smoking will kill you one day, old man. A deep voice, one he hadn't heard in a long time, forced Hiruzen to snap around. There in his office was Jiraiya of the Sannin. Jiraiya boy. What brings you here in my office? Your next report isn't due for another 2 weeks, let alone the next face-to-face visit. It was Jiraiya's serious face that gave it away. He wasn't here on business, certainly not pleasure. No, he was pissed off about something. You're working with Danzo. Not a question, but a statement he knew. So that's why he was mad. Yes, Jiraiya, I am. His rude Anbu make for an effective tool. I take it you disagree. He wasn't surprised Jiraiya found out so soon. Hiruzen had been expecting this for some time. Of course I fucking disagree, Sarutobi sensei. How long have the two of you been enemies? And for no reason all of a sudden you're friends. Well, Jiraiya, friends is a bit too strong a word, more like allies at the moment. I fully expect Danzo to betray me the moment it suits his purposes. However, I am the Sandaime Hokage and I have let me village go astray for too long. I will do what it takes to get control of my village and do what is right for my people. What is best for my ninja. I am known far and wide as the professor, master of all the hidden leaf ninjutsu. It's time I start acting like it, but not like the sensei. You may be the professor, but going down this road you're going to have to make choices you'd never choose to make. Hiruzen's eyes hardened over, you're right Jiraiya, but I walk down this path because that is what is best for the leaf. Now you're starting to sound like Danzo to sensei. How long will it be before you disregard the will of fire, prioritize power over peace? How long before you start making sacrifices of your own people? You go too far, Jiraiya. I may be making hard choices, but I am not completely lost. I am still me. And are you so sure of that, sensei? Jiraiya turned his back to Hiruzen, walking towards the door, because I'm starting to have trouble seeing who's in front of me, the professor or the Warhawk. Hiruzen watched Jiraiya leave before slumping in his chair. Looking towards the portraits he asked again out loud, this time, am I doing the right thing, sensei? Lord First, Minato. Am I? Naruto opened his eyes to the white noise of a very familiar hospital room. Great, not even 2 days in and I'm already in the hospital. Naruto sat up looking around the empty room, his chest screaming to get back down, making Naruto flinch. Man, did Sasuke really do this much damage to me? Shit. He reached over the end of his bed, aiming for the doctor's report, which is when he learned of the massive sore spot just at the base of the back of his neck. The doctor's reports told Naruto everything he already knew. So it's only been a couple of hours, huh? That'd explain why I still hurt though. The most interesting thing on the report though was a side note at the bottom which read, lucky to note have serious and crippling burn wounds. Man, Sasuke was aiming to do some serious damage. Is this what Shinigami meant when he said time would try to fix itself? Because Sasuke never did that before. Hell, the closest thing he did was at the first battle at the Valley of the End, and even then he couldn't bring himself to actually kill me. Man, I really need to train so that this doesn't happen again. Also, I'm really going to have to thank Kurama for healing the burn damage first. Normally she treated the other injuries before healing my skin. Naruto stood up against the judgment of his body, making him flinch. He really did a number on me though. I need to start some endurance training. Well, first I need to learn how to use this body, because my mind keep trying to make it use moves it doesn't know yet. Man, the back to the past stuff is super hard. Naruto headed over to the window, stopping for a brief second to look at the golden colored sky as the sun was just starting to set. Hey, was that Iruka walking down the street with Mizuki? Hey, it's not like I ever knew much about Iruka's personal life. He'll learn eventually the person he really is. I just hope this time I can stop Iruka from being injured. Well, here goes nothing. He leapt out the window and onto the roof of a nearby shop a couple stories down. He had places to be, to train at where he wouldn't be interrupted. But first he needed some books, the library should still be open. Skip. Naruto grinned as he exited the library. He had never actually had any interest in going there before. The fact the lady who owned the shop absolutely hated Naruto didn't help. But a quick application of a hinge jutsu, some cash he borrowed off of Iruka, and Naruto had a scroll detailing the basics of wind, earth and water style ninjutsu, as well as a basic defensive sword style. While Naruto's chakra nature hadn't been aligned to water style, he happened to know that after earth style the easiest element for him to learn to use was water. Putting the scrolls in the empty storage scroll he had kept, Naruto started wailing in the direction of Iruka's house. Training would have to wait. His body was in no condition to train. He'd only hurt himself worse. Though he did keep out the Kenjutsu scroll. It was known as the tortoise style, keeping a short to medium-length blade close to the body to deflect all attacks and then counter when the opponent left themselves open. Very basic and easy to overcome if one were fast enough or strong enough to overpower the user, but Kakashi had told Naruto that Danzo's root Anbu used a modified version of the style, and Naruto had seen firsthand how deadly Sai was when he used his blade. The katas were indeed very basic, it was more about timing when to dodge, when to deflect, and when to counterattack. It even went over some more advanced techniques. And if I incorporate dad's flash step then I can easily keep up with faster opponents. So really using this style all I have to worry about are people who are physically stronger than myself. Use some clones as a diversion cannon fodder, yes this has potential and thud. Naruto was so caught up in his thoughts he hadn't seen the other person walking down the street caught up in her thought on the way to the hospital to see her friend. They collided head-on and both fell to the ground. Oh, I'm so sorry. Hinata. And Naruto-kun. She was genuinely surprised to see the blonde out and about and reading. He should still be unconscious, but no here he was having apparently been to a scroll solder or maybe library, actually getting into knowledge. Oh my. I'm sorry and Naruto-kun. Naruto got up quickly and held out his hand to Hinata. No Hinata it's my fault I'm sorry, here let me help you up. He swiftly grabbed Hinata's hand, bringing her to her feet. The close proximity contact however was too much for Hinata's brain. He's holding my hand. When she was on her feet she promptly fell forward onto Naruto's chest. Oh great she fainted and I have no idea where the Hyuga compound is because I never had a reason to go there. Great, well might as well bring her with me. He picked up Hinata bridal style. He was lucky the street he was walking wasn't occupied at the moment, Kami only knows what number of rumors would have started. Well little did Naruto know there was a set of eyes watching, an older set of eyes. Pupilless wide eyes watching as the Jinchuriki picked up the Hyuga heiress and began walking towards the training area. Hinata had the best dream ever, she was whisked off her feet by a blonde knight in shining armor. Until she heard the sounds of forest life and felt soft grass beneath her. She heard the grunting of a male somewhere to her right. She was obviously in some sort of shade, as every so often spots of sunlight would hit her eyes, for a brief second. Mumbling to herself about a good dream ruined she sat up rubbing her eyes. The last that she remembered was talking to Naruto before he. Her face went flush as she remembered the feeling of his firm grip on her hand. The kind and sorry look in his eyes. How did she end up here? Looking around she seemed to be in some sort of training field. She had been right about her assumption of shade, she had been placed underneath a tree. The sound of some guy training were somewhere behind the tree. She took a peek and nearly fainted again at the sight of a bare-chested Naruto swinging his sheathed sword, swinging it down, then making a right to left, taking a step forward, then bringing the blade back so it was held diagonally against his chest, taking a step back, then he would repeat the maneuver again. Her eyes narrowed as she saw the signs of injury on Naruto's body, had he been fighting someone? Then she saw him put the blade down and take a deep breath. It was still noontime if the sun setting was any indicator. She hadn't been out for very long. Her eyes were drawn again to Naruto as he made the weirdest hand sign, he made a cross sign with his left and right index and middle fingers. She heard him say shadow clone jutsu. And what followed was two explosions on either side of Naruto blowing him back a couple of feet, much to his rather loud cursing. That explains the injuries, he's practicing some sort of ninjutsu. And from which she saw one that required a large amount of chakra. He was laying on his back staring at the sky, damn it I need this jutsu. Well chakra control it is. He sat up, grabbing a few stray leaves and attaching them to his body. The very basics of chakra control, what would later be used to teach young ninja how to walk on water. Hinata being the Hyuga heiress was trained how to do all of that years ago, it was an effective tool to help hone the gentle fist fighting style her family was known for. It makes sense for Naruto to require extra chakra control lessons, his chakra stores were almost bigger than two entire classes combined, teachers included. Naruto had about 6 leaves attached to several different parts of his body. But his face was distorted into a grimace as he held them for a couple of seconds before the leaves fell. He balled his fist and hit the ground growling before picking the leaves up and placing them on his body, one after the other. Hinata made a few quick hand signs and activated her Byakugan examining Naruto. Almost immediately she saw the problem. He was rushing the exercise, not establishing a proper connection from the leaves to his body with his chakra before placing the next leaf. He was causing a strain almost because his chakra control was trying to catch up to his actions, he fell short. Here's my chance to try and get closer. She started walking forward, but her mind flashed to her actually having to talk to Naruto and she paused, anxiety welling up in her. But can I? I mean what if he doesn't want my help? She shook her head if I don't take a step, I'll always be behind him. She took another step forward and then another. 3 steps is all it took for Naruto to notice her presence. Oh Hinata. You're awake finally. How are you feeling? She was nervous about something, but he did notice her eyes never left his chest, never actually meeting his gaze. What's on your mind? Your chakra control. Naruto grinned and rubbed his head. Yeah I have a lot of chakra, so I have to train really hard and chakra control's the hardest training I can do. But as you can see, I'm having a little difficulty. You're rushing-eyed. Though it took a total of 5 minutes to say a few sentences, Hinata managed to explain what she had seen to Naruto, who stared at Hinata for a full 5 minutes before giving her a big kiss on the forehead. "Hinata, you're a genius. I could use you for training more often." He didn't get a response, in fact he had moved out of Hinata's line of sight and she was staring at one spot but looking 1,000 miles away. A blush was creeping its way through her face. It was then Naruto realized what he had done. Oops. He gently, ever so gently poked her forehead. Of course she fell back, fully erect like a statue, onto her back, not flinching, not blinking, not response whatsoever. "I think I actually broke her this time. Well, I better find out where the Hyuga compound is. I don't think she'll be awake or even active for much longer. Great. Okage-sama, what can I do for you?" Sasuke's monotonous voice carried throughout the empty Uchiha compound. He had expected someone to show up, a teacher or maybe the principal, but definitely not the freaking Hokage himself. They were currently sitting in Sasuke's living room. "Hello there, young Sasuke, you and I need to have a talk about your actions at school earlier. You seriously injured Naruto." Sasuke looked away. "If you know what happened then you know what he said." Sasuke, being angry is not an excuse for the level of damage you intended to do to him. He's still your comrade. BFF, comrade. The dope's lucky I talked to him at all. Now Sasuke, I need you to understand, in this matter you meant deadly harm to another student. Those carry serious consequences. And why should I care? Up until a few days ago Naruto never took anything seriously. He acts like an idiot all the time with no care for how others think. He noticed the slight shift in Hiruzen's face. And do you know why Naruto acts out so much? Simple, because he wants to be the center of everyone's attention. He wants people to think he's going to be the greatest ninja ever without admitting he's nothing but a loser who can barely control his own chakra. So close to the truth, but thousands of miles away. What's that supposed to mean, Hokage-sama? It means you're wrong, Sasuke. Or at the least partly right. Naruto is a young boy deprived of attention by an entire village and almost his entire class. Acting a fool is the only way he knows for others to acknowledge him. Hiruzen stood up, he acts out so other will notice him. Even you must have noticed that most of the village hates Naruto. Yes, I have, Hokage-sama, but I can't figure out why. Everyone dislikes him, but no one is willing to talk about it. Why? A glint appeared in Hiruzen's eye. I'm not at liberty to say, Sasuke. But a smart boy like you? I'm sure you can figure it out. I will leave you with two things, Sasuke. Naruto is nothing like he appears to be. And finally I will let you go with a warning, this time. The next time there will be serious consequences, the first of which will be your immediate expulsion from the Ninja Corporation. Having said that, Hiruzen made a swift exit, one single memory playing through his mind. Are you so sure of that, Sensei? Jiraiya turned his back to Hiruzen walking towards the door, because I'm starting to have trouble seeing who's in front of me, the professor or the Warhawk. 2 months into the school year had gotten everyone into a routine of sorts. Naruto would wake up early with Iruka and accompany him to the academy, where he would usually be the first to class. Soon after he arrived, Hinata would come in, and Naruto made a habit to ask her to sit next to him. It was a giant help for her stutter and confidence. She was quickly becoming the top kunoichi in class, easily surpassing the fangirls like Sakura and Ino. Naruto himself seemed to grow immensely as he started getting into his training, which he did after school, with which he also made a habit of inviting Hinata. Not only was she an amazing offensive fighter, which easily tested the limits of Naruto's kenjutsu, where he often ended up partially paralyzed on his back, her Byakugan made Naruto's chakra control training supremely effective. The improvements were noticeable in class's regular sparring sessions, where Sasuke made it a personal note to challenge Naruto. And most of their spars were more evenly matched because Sasuke didn't underestimate Naruto. Right now they were tied 7-8 and the class usually made a bet. If Naruto could hold onto his blade for the first part of the clash, then normally he won, but if Sasuke could remain on the offensive and catch Naruto off guard, then he'd win. And when it came to Hinata, she had to be brought up to the male bracket as the rest of the females in the class were sorely lacking. Though it did give Iruka reason enough to push the ladies harder. After their conversation, Mizuki didn't show his face around the school for an entire week. Iruka was just starting to look for replacements when Mizuki showed up for class one day. I took what you said into consideration, Iruka-san. I still don't want to believe I've been hating an innocent kid for this long, but I'm willing to see if I was wrong. Since then Mizuki had fully stepped into his role as Taijutsu instructor. Even going so far as to give Naruto some pointers with his kenjutsu. Mizuki was also adamant about making Sasuke work with other students, not caring if the boy didn't feel like it. He would often set up team matches, 3 versus 3, so the kids would get used to their future teams. Sasuke for his part was quieter than normal, not boisterous, his thoughts keeping him inward. And most disturbing, they were often about a certain infuriating blonde. He had gone to civilian records, asking about Naruto only to learn that for some reason his were sealed at the highest order. All he could figure out was that the dope was born the same day the Yondaime Hokage killed the nine-tailed fox, October 11th. That was it, that and also everyone had a chip on their shoulder when it came to him. It was infuriating. Sasuke was used to getting any piece of information he wanted, but not even the people of the council would tell him, they were all tight-lipped about it. What was so special about Naruto? It had people scared to death. I will find out, you fool. Life progressed after that, up until Naruto's first visit with Hiruzen, that is. Naruto was sitting in the grass just staring at the intimidating tower which housed the most powerful figure in the country of fire. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Naruto remembered Hiruzen's funeral. Seeing Konohamaru cry into Asuma's shoulder, he could remember the nights he stayed up, wishing for Hiruzen to come back, because no one else cared like he did. Naruto chuckled, back then he would have given anything to speak to Hiruzen for any number of minutes, and now that he had all the time in the world, he didn't know what he'd say. Hey old man, I'm from the future, and I know the exact day and circumstances in which you die. Yeah, that's a quick way to a loony bin and a Yamanaka psychiatrist appointment. He could see Hiruzen, standing at the window puffing on his pipe, watching over the city. I wonder if I can convince him to give me access to my family estate, the Namikaze family legacy. I remember Kakashi telling me how all of Dad's work was hidden in one giant library. Hiruzen took the information of how to get in with him when he died, so I never really worried about claiming it. Naruto stood up and walked to the door. Well, I could always try this. Hiruzen had hired a new secretary, a young brunette Chunin. She saw Naruto approached and gave him a distasteful glare. Oh, what do you want, brat? Naruto returned the glare. I'm here to see Jai-san. The Lord Hokage is currently in a meeting, brat. He's busy and will probably be busy for the rest of the afternoon. Come back later, or even better stay away. The Hokage is a busy man and doesn't make time for the likes of you. Naruto just waved her off and proceeded past her. Hey. You can't go in there. I said the Hokage is a busy man. She had just stood up to stop Naruto when he flung open the cage's door, his face turned to see what the commotion was. Of course his office was empty save for the old man himself. Though he was not surprised to see the disturbance was Naruto, in fact he smiled happy for the distraction from the mountain of paperwork on his desk. Ah, Naruto, my boy, how good to see you. It's alright Clara, I'll deal with this, you go back to your duties. And please close the door behind you, Naruto. Naruto did as asked, grinning at the infuriated Chunin. He closed the door and turned towards Hiruzen and smiled. Hey Jai-san, it's been a while since we talked. Hiruzen motioned towards the empty seat in front of his desk and sat down. You're right Naruto, it has been some time. I am glad to see you've revised your choice of clothing and surprised to see you've picked up the way of the blade. Yeah, it was all Iruka's idea actually. He wanted me to have my own edge when it came to fighting the clan heirs, and I've been training with Hinata recently, it's been a big help. Hiruzen gave a big smile. I'm glad to see you making friends among your peers Naruto, I've read Iruka's reports about your astonishing growth in class. Naruto gave a dry chuckle. It's amazing what one can do when they're not being hindered and sabotaged by their teachers. Yes, Iruka has also expressed concerns about that. I am sorry Naruto at how stunted your growth has been. Naruto waved the old man off. It's fine Jai-san, you're the Hokage. You can't keep up with my every move at every point in time. It's not your fault. You're correct of course, but it still makes me sad that my own villagers would stoop so low. But that is besides the point. What brings you here today? Naruto was quiet for a second before. I want to know, is Kushina Uzumaki my mother? Hiruzen froze for a split second. In just one brief moment, his eye narrowed. Tell me how you came to that conclusion Naruto. Well Jai-san, you know I've always wanted to know about my family, you wouldn't tell me, so I went to public records and found that after the destruction of Uzushi Akagure, a single Uzumaki came to the leaf, a Kushina Uzumaki. Her records after that are sealed, as she apparently became a ninja. So I looked up the archives of deceased ninja and found out she was killed during the Kyuubi attack, the day I was born. I know it's not a lot, but it's the most I found, so I was hoping maybe she was my mother. Because if that's not true, then why am I Naruto Uzumaki? That was the look in his eyes that broke Hiruzen, a small boy who was just looking for answers to a question he had been asking for as long as he'd been able to ask it. He gave a long sigh and sat back. Yes Naruto, Kushina Uzumaki was your mother, and before you ask, yes, there is a reason this knowledge was hidden from you. When she was young, the hidden Cloud Village tried to kidnap her for her line of Uzumaki heritage, and I feared the same fate would befall you if the two of you were ever officially connected. Naruto gave a confused look. I'm sorry, what do you mean by her line of Uzumaki heritage? You see, in the Uzumaki clan there were some who had a bloodline limit, much like the Inyazuka and their companionship with Ninken hounds or the Akamichi with their body inflation technique. The Uzumaki could manipulate chakra to create chains that could seal another person's chakra completely, though it was rare among the Uzumaki. Kushina did indeed possess this bloodline, although it's a mystery on whether or not she passed it on to you my boy. Anyways, I kept it a secret so that Kumo would not come after you, for should you know who your mother is, then you have all rights to make it public. Naruto looked at the ground, feigning deep contemplation. He knew this already, Kakashi and Tsunade had explained all of that to Naruto. So he wasn't mad, but he was trying to think how would Naruto have handled this information when he was actually still in the academy. Does that mean you know who my father is? This was the moment he was waiting for, the body of an 11-year-old and the mind of an 18-year-old, but damn it he wanted to hear Hiruzen say it, like he was a little kid again. That is not a question I'm going to answer at this point in time, Naruto, and I am sorry. To know who your father is to learn certain truths about yourself and him, and I don't think you're ready for that yet. He probably means how dad sealed Kurama into me. Naruto clenched his fists and looked down, but that's not fair, Jai-san. You are right, Naruto, it's not fair, but it is for your safety. To take his name is to take his enemies, and trust me when I say he had many who were powerful. And when will you tell me then, Jai-san? Hiruzen smiled. Well, Naruto, it was either when you became a Chunin or if you decided not to become a ninja when you were 16. But how about this then, at the end of the year, if you pass and become a ninja, I will hold a test for you. If you pass then I will tell you, if you fail then you will learn once you are 16 or have reached the rank of Chunin. Got it? Naruto stared into the eyes of Hiruzen, stern but still soft and kind. He really didn't like hiding the information from Naruto, but he had to. And Naruto could understand that, didn't mean he had to like it though. Fine, Jai-san, I'll take your test and when I pass I want to hear the words come from you. Naruto stood up and pointed at Hiruzen, and when I pass I want your personal acknowledgement that I'm one step closer to becoming the greatest Hokage ever. He then ran off to find Hinata. He had some training to do. Just because he went back in time to change things doesn't mean his end goal had changed. Just as Naruto walked out, Danzo walked in, the two meeting each other's gaze for a brief second. Danzo, I hope you don't make a habit of unscheduled meetings. And what did the Jinchuriki want, Hiruzen? He has a name, Danzo, and he was asking about his heritage. The boy figured out Kushina on his own, but has yet to realize his relation to Minato, even though he's almost a carbon copy of the man. It does beg the question though how long it will be till he finds out. Danzo shrugged his shoulders. The sooner he inherits his heritage, the sooner we may be to finding out the secret to Minato's Hirishin technique. Imagine if our ninja had access to that technique. The hidden leaf would be unstoppable. Hiruzen gave Danzo a hard look. No, Danzo. If we get access to that technique it'll be only because Naruto chose to share it with us. It's a family technique. It is the same reason why all our ninja don't have their own ninkin like the Inyazuka or Kakachu bugs like the Aburum. Now onto the reason you've decided to grace me with your appearance today. Danzo slapped a folder onto Hiruzen's desk. You asked, now I'm delivering. That is my ninja's report from Iowa. There is a protocol to get a message out to retired ninja in other villages. They send older men, who aren't even able to fight, to the villages, and they find the retired nin, delivering a message of some kind, as well as the orders they're meant to give. And it would appear that Tsuchikage sees Tucci as an active undercover agent. Though Tucci's word was true, he hasn't been sent any orders from Iowa in a very long time. Hiruzen scanned over the contents of the folder. Thank you, Danzo, that will be all for now. Also I must thank you for Sora-san, she is an excellent ninja. Well, what did you expect, Hiruzen? I trained her after all. I guess so, Danzo. So how likely is Iowa to contact Ichiraku again? Like I said, Hiruzen, Tucci hasn't been an active ninja in a long time. I doubt that fool of a Kage even remembers him as an asset. Though I will still have eyes on the man and his daughter. Interestingly enough though, Iowa doesn't seem to know of her existence. It wasn't in any of the records my ninja could find. Hiruzen stroked his goatee. Very interesting indeed. You said you had an undercover agent acting as an construction worker. Yes I do, though fairly low in the actually hierarchy when it comes to Wakager construction. Why, what do you have in mind? Oh, just some passing thoughts is all. How useful is he to you? When it comes to fighting he's decent, but his true talent lies in information gathering, getting blueprints and schematics for certain buildings, and figuring out who's in whose circle of allies and friends. Hiruzen stroked his goatee. Have him find out who in the village actively stands against Inoki, and who supports peaceful actions with a leaf, their precious stones and metal for our fish and lumber. Ah, Hiruzen, you fool, if we had the Hirishin technique at our fingers, then we could have all of their precious stones and metal by the end of next month. Peaceful talks might take years to bore any fruit. Hiruzen gave Danzo a hard stare. Fine, you'll get my report when I do, Hiruzen. Danzo made a quick exit, leaving Hiruzen with his thoughts. The Hirishin will be the Namika's legacy. If Danzo gets his hands on it, then war will consume the entirety of the elemental nations. I must keep it out of his grasp at all costs, but how? Any plans will have to wait until Naruto gets access to those scrolls. Sparrow. He barked out, and the latest addition to his guard popped out of her hiding hole, bowing the new bird mask, framing two locks of reddish-brown hair on either side of her face. Yes, Hokage-sama. Find me Jiraiya of the Sannin and tell him that I need him immediately. Tell him it involves the seal holding the Kyuubi. I fear it may be failing. Yes, Hokage-sama. And she was gone in a small swirl of leaves. Well, Hiruzen was technically lying, it would get Jiraiya to his office the fastest. He had a plan, after all he wasn't known as the professor for nothing. He needed Jiraiya's vast knowledge of Hyuinjutsu, as Hiruzen's was lacking. On the east side of the village, in the Hyuga complex, Hiashi was pondering a rather perplexing puzzle. Hinata's continued friendship with the Jinchuriki. Oh, he knew the boy wasn't the Ninetales, his Byakugan had easily been able to separate the boy's chakra from that of the fox within him. On one hand, the boy was universally hated throughout the village, and he didn't want that hatred to pass on to Hinata and by proxy the Hyuga clan. On the other hand, though, their continuous sparring and training together had done an enormous wonder for her self-confidence, he was starting to see the clan heiress he always wanted to see out of her. She rarely stuttered anymore and would more often than not look the elders in their eyes as they spoke to her. Hell, she even handled her own against Niji in a spar they had earlier this morning. And Niji, dear Kami. What had happened to him? He had changed in what seemed like a day. Hiashi hadn't heard Niji say anything about fate and destiny in what seemed like forever, and he was more kind and caring towards Hinata, almost acting like an older brother to her. He didn't know why, but he felt that Naruto was somehow to blame for it, he just couldn't find out how. He was kneeling behind his desk, having finished the day's paperwork and enjoying a rare moment of relaxation, his thoughts drifting to his late wife. Hi-Omo-Chan-1, what would you say? I know I've been hard on her, but she needs to be strong in this village or she won't go anywhere, and it's starting to look like she's reaching for her potential. Thanks to a boy no less. The Ashi chuckled to himself. Reminds you of me, doesn't it? His Ashi was always the talented one until I met you. But hate will come of that friendship, and if hate starts coming the Hyuga way, then the clan elders might come in and try to stop it by force. Then he heard a sound, like small thud, his ears perked up as they tried to discern what the sounds were. He closed his eyes for 1 second. Byakugan. With his Dojutsu cast, he trained his sight to the courtyard outside his office. He was surprised to see Hinata, without her jacket on, going at it against training posts in the center. And by the looks of it, she had been going at it for a while. The bruises on her fingers and knuckles were what gave it away. Yes, that boy, Naruto Uzumaki, had lit a flame behind her eyes, one he had seen in her mother's many times. The Ashi stood up and made his way to the courtyard, to a small tree a little to the left of where Hinata was training. Some side branch members had stopped what they were doing to watch the young heiress train. My Hinata, at this rate I might have to get a new training post. Hinata turned around in surprise. How long had Hiashi been standing there? Father, what are you doing here? The Ashi looked towards his office, Hinata's eyes following his gaze. Well, it is my compound, and that is my office. The real question is, how long have you been here? Hinata looked down. Oh, I'm just an hour or so. Dear Kami, an hour of training with no break. If I didn't know any better, I'd say Niji was bringing her to training sessions with Guy. Hiashi motioned for one side branch member to follow him as he walked over to Hinata. Clean those wounds up, will you? If my daughter is hell-bent on training that hard, then by all means she deserves a moving target. Hinata looked in confusion as the side branch member hurriedly fixed up her hands. Father, what do you mean? He had never so openly claimed her as his daughter, and was that an iota of pride she heard in his voice. Once the side branch member finished, Hiashi took the familiar Jukin stance. I mean, daughter, that you've improved greatly in the last couple of weeks, and I want you to show me just how much better you've gotten. Audible gasps were heard from the small crowd that had gathered around. It was a wide-known fact in the Hyuga clan that Hiashi didn't spar with Hinata, for the simple fact he thought she was too weak to spar with. One such gasp came from Hinata herself. This was the last thing she expected from her father. She was at a loss. You are right, Hiashi-sama. Hinata-sama has grown a tremendous amount in such a short time. Everybody gasped again as Niji walked into the small circle to stand behind Hinata. Since when did he praise her? Didn't he hate her? I think it would do her some good to realize just how far she's come since school started. Hinata looked into Niji's eyes. He was standing up for her. He had been acting differently lately, but she wasn't expecting this. Though his words did inspire some confidence in her. Fine, father, I will spar with you. She assumed the Jukin as well, and Hiashi smiled. But Hinata, then Niji will act as a referee. Come at me with everything you have. Mentally he finished, and show me that you can be the next clan leader, the one I always knew you could be. Hinata charged Hiashi, her fingers a blur as they started attacking. Hiashi, being the veteran he was easily able to step out of the way of her strikes. Taking the small pause she took to backflip away, he took a long stride forward to lash out with his own strike. What he wasn't prepared for was Hinata to roll around and then under his outstretched arm to deliver an uppercut-style Jukin strike, forcing Hiashi to use his other arm to block the strike, then backstepped away. Ooze and ahs followed the maneuver as Hinata followed up with a lunge kick into a spinning combo of Jukin strikes. Hiashi, not able to recover from being staggered back, was put on the defensive momentarily. If there was one thing Hinata learned from fighting someone as unpredictable as Naruto, it was that to win you needed to be unpredictable too. The Jukin style was too stationary, too rigid for someone as flexible as her, she needed maneuverability, and had thus changed her Jukin style to fit it, having fought an unpredictable blonde who seemed to know a lot about Jukin fighters for someone who really shouldn't have helped a lot. Though it didn't take long for Hiashi to realize and adapt to this, as he knocked Hinata's hands aside and landed 2 strikes to the center of her chest, pushing her back a few feet. The crowd went silent as the first blow of the spar was dealt. Hinata was panting a little, but she looked up at her father with determination burning in her eye. This was the first time he had sparred with her in a long time, and she was not going to disappoint him. Her father was a retired ninja with years' worth of practice and experience, her winning this spar was not an option, but proving to him that he could be proud of her was all she wanted. And boy did she do that, she gathered chakra in her feet and leapt into the air, raining down all the shuriken and kunai she had. Hiashi smirked and started spinning rotation. He shouted, a dome of chakra ricocheting the weapons in all directions. That had been the plan though, as Hiashi was surrounded by chakra, he didn't see Hinata land or get in a very unique stance. Niji saw though, and his eyes widened as the